Good evening, friends. It's my honor and privilege to introduce today's very learned speaker, CA Kamal Garg ji. He is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India and a first-class commerce graduate from Deen Dayal Upadhyay College, University of Delhi. He has also qualified a post-qualification course in Diploma in Information System, that is DISA, conducted by ICAI. Besides this, he is also an insolvency professional registered with Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, that is IBBI. He is also a qualified certificate course in BRSR conducted by ICAI. He is also a qualified social auditor examination conducted by NISM. He is also a member of Board of Studies BOS Study Material Research Group in 2009-2010 of NIRC of ICI, and also a special invitee member of Accounting Standards Board, that is ASB, in 2012, 2013, 2020, 21, 22, 23 and 23, 24 as well. Financial Reporting Review Group, that is FRRB ICAI 2020-21 and 2023-24. He is a long list. He has also addressed a IFRS for member of National Board of Accountants and Auditors of Tanzania and East Africa. Besides being a regular guest speaker of IFRS and Management Development Program at various forums, including ICAI and ICSI. He is also an author of over a dozen of books and commentaries on and including IFRS and IND accounting standard concept and application, audit trail, as well as practical guide on COVID-19 guide of financial reporting and audit, COVID-19 guide for business and professions, and a conscious commentary on Companies Act, Companies Resolution, notices, meetings, minutes, borrowings, loans, and investment of company law, as well as accounting standards and taxation. Beside this, is auditor practice. He is also part of the auditor's practice manual, understanding of goods and service tax, GST, corporate and allied law, including insolvency bankruptcy code. Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, a ready reckoner published by a leading publishing houses, Walters and Colver on Bharat Law Houses Private Limited. He has, to his credit, the contribution of Gist of Accounting Standards and Accounting Assurance Standards, Volume 2 of Company Law, published by BLH, and various articles for NIRC, CIRC of ICAI. Newsletter on FBT, MAT, USSOX, PEMA, etc., and a series of articles on Delhi Value Added Tax, that is DVAT, taxation, accounting, auditing aspects for the journal tax and corporate references, that is TCR, including the various articles on external commercial borrowing, that is ECB, direct taxes and foreign direct investment.
मनसुख भाई सॉरी फॉर इंटरप्शन आई बिलीव मैं शुरू करना चाहिए ये डेटा तो सिलेबस का पार्ट नहीं है
thank you sir so with this brief introduction I request you to please proceed sir.
Thank you so good evening to each one of you. I am thankful to the panelists, especially Vijay ji, for giving me this opportunity to address the audience today, and I am thankful to the audience for gathering this evening. Before I share my screen and discuss the topic in detail, I have a small question to be asked. The topic for the day is standards on auditing for the audit reports. Why there is a need for auditing standards in context of audit reports? आज हम बात करते हैं कि we have to read auditing standards audit report बनाने के लिए. तो ऐसी क्या जरूरत है that we need SCA's help for audit reports? Any special reason? I must say, with all of my little experience I do have, majority of the chartered accountants are tax practitioners. And if you go to the chartered accountants, that primarily we are the auditors. Now, even if we are the tax practitioners, we do carry out tax audits, we do carry out GST audits also for that matter. The question still is the same. Even if you go for tax audits, abhi season aane wala tax audits ka, even in tax audits, the auditing standards are applicable. But the question still is same. you go for statutory audits or tax audits, the question is why we need auditing standards. If I give the answer is very simple. Let us take the situation. If you go to the Companies Act, in Companies Act, we do have section number 143 subsection 2. Section 143 subsection 2 states that auditors have to express an opinion as to whether the financial statements are reflecting true and fair view or not. मैं फिर से बोलता हूं इस बात को. Section number 143 subsection 2 of the Companies Act states that auditors have to express an opinion as to whether financial statements are reflecting true and fair view or not. तो अभी हुआ क्या? The Companies Act has simply given you a mandate in the name of the obligation that you have to express a view, that is whether financial statements are reflecting true and fair view version or not. But if you see at a macro level, Companies Act is totally silent as to what shall be the format of audit report, as to what shall be the content of audit report, and more importantly, as to what are the types of audit report. When we say qualified report, adverse report, disclaimer report, these reports types are not given by Companies Act. In fact, because Companies Act is silent, and for that matter, Income Tax Act is also silent, and for that matter, even GST Act is also silent about what shall be the format and content of audit report, what shall be the types of audit report, there is a need to bring in the uniformity. And that is the reason the Accounting and Auditing Regulator of India, that is ICAI, came up with the auditing standards. When I was doing my CA course, those days it used to be SAP, Statement on Auditing Practices. Later on, it became AAS, Auditing and Assurance Standards. Today, it is SA. So if I say in a very succinct manner, सिंपल सी बात ये है कि ऑडिट रिपोर्ट्स के ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स हमें इसलिए पढ़ने हैं, इसलिए समझने हैं, क्योंकि कंपनीज एक्ट ने ये नहीं बताया कि ऑडिट रिपोर्ट का फॉर्मेट क्या होगा, ऑडिट रिपोर्ट का कंटेंट क्या होगा, ऑडिट रिपोर्ट के टाइप्स क्या होंगे. इफ आई से इट अगेन, since Companies Act is silent altogether as to what shall be the format and content of audit report and as to what shall be the types of audit report, we have no other option left with us but to go through the auditing standards. So I will discuss auditing standards with this very whole issue. I will start with SA 700 series. I am sharing my screen. Vijay ji, please confirm once my screen is visible. Is it visible, sir?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So when we discuss audit reports, there are many standards. We will start with the SA 700, SA 705, SA 706. Then we will discuss SA 710 and some more standards to come. So primarily, SA 700, 705 and 706 are the core of audit reports. And I will discuss all these things in detail. Should you have any queries, you are most welcome to ask. SA 700 revised, I should say rather, is dealing with forming an opinion and reporting on financial statements. So primarily, if I say the layman, SA 700 deals with unqualified report. Then we have SA 705. SA 705 deals with modifications to opinion in the independent auditor's report. As a layman, I will say SA 705 deals with qualified report, adverse report, or disclaimer report. Then is SA 706. It deals with emphasis of matter paragraph and other matter paragraph in the independent audit report. It seems simple, but it is not that much simple. Let us move one by one. Now be very careful, and I will be discussing something very different from what you have discussed already. I raise some questions before the house. कुछ सवाल मैं पूछ रहा हूं आप लोगों से, आप सवालों को नोट कर लीजिएगा, and then we will discuss in detail. Question number one. Question number one is, you know very well, Schedule 3 requires rounding off of financial statement figures. अभी आप Schedule 3 पढ़ते हैं, Schedule 3 में लिखा हुआ है कि आपको अपने financial figures round off करने हैं. Let us take a situation, one of your client is there on whom Schedule 3 is applicable, but that client has not rounded off financial figures. Client ने financial figures को round off नहीं किया. Question for the people is, if the client, being a company, has not rounded off financial figures, shall we issue clean report, that is unqualified report, or qualified report, or adverse report, or disclaimer report, or emphasis of matter paragraph report, or other matter paragraph report? So keep this question in mind कि अगर rounding off नहीं हुआ है तो मुझे clean report issue करना है, qualified report issue करना है, adverse report issue करना है, या disclaimer report issue करना है, या एम्फेसिस रिपोर्ट इशू करना है, या लास्ट में अदर मैटर रिपोर्ट इशू करना है? दिस क्वेश्चन नंबर 1. व्हाई दिस क्वेश्चन इज इंपॉर्टेंट? अगर राउंडिंग ऑफ नहीं हुआ, देयर इज नो फाइनेंशियल इम्पैक्ट, because whatever rounding off you were supposed to do on the debit side, the same rounding off will also take place on the credit side. And if it is not happening, it does mean that there is no financial impact. So question banta hai wala. Question number second is, your client is having several vendors or customers to whom either the money is payable or the money is recoverable. You sent external confirmation request. आपने अपने क्लाइंट के जो वेंडर्स हैं उनको एक कम्युनिकेशन भेजा और पूछा कि क्या मेरे क्लाइंट ने आपको इतना अमाउंट पे करना है, या आपने अपने क्लाइंट के कस्टमर को कम्युनिकेशन किया और पूछा कि क्या आपने मेरे क्लाइंट को इतना पैसा देना है. बट व्हाट हैपेंड, you sent the confirmation request, no reply was received. In my experience, I observed most of the notes to accounts are containing this blanket statement. The blanket statement is debtors and creditor balances are subject to confirmation. And the same statement somehow also travels into audit report. Debtors and creditor balances are subject to confirmation. So in a situation where debtors and creditor balances are subject to confirmation, should we issue qualified report, adverse report, disclaimer report or clean report? ऐसा देखा गया है कि स्टेटमेंट लिखा होता है debtors and creditor balances are subject to confirmation, but still clean report is issued, which I must say is wrong. Why it is wrong, we will discuss in detail in a while. So for this very issue, what is unqualified report? Now be careful. What is unqualified report? SS 700 revised states that unqualified report is issued when auditors are having no reservations on financial statements as a whole. I repeat, unqualified report is issued when auditors are having no reservations on financial statements as a whole. Keep these two things in mind. One is reservation and second is financial statements as a whole. I repeat this thing once again. Unqualified report, or you can say clean report, is issued when auditors are having no reservations on financial statements as a whole. आप यूं कह लीजिए, ऑडिटर को जब लगता है कि फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स टोटलिटी में ठीक बना हुआ है, तो उस केस में जो रिपोर्ट इशू किया जाएगा वो अनक्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट होगा, जिसको क्लीन रिपोर्ट भी कहा जा सकता है. देन इज क्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट. एज पर एस 705, qualified report is issued when auditors are having reservations. Now see the change. Qualified report is issued when auditors are having reservations on some of the items, on certain items out of financial statements as a whole. जब फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स इन टोटलिटी में से कुछ एक आइटम्स के ऊपर आपका रिजर्वेशन होता है, तो जो रिपोर्ट तब इशू किया जाएगा वो क्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट होगा. एग्जाम्पल के लिए, you completed your audit and you came to an understanding that out of the entire set of financial statements, inventory was misstated. Inventory should have been valued at cost or NRV, whichever is lower, but inventory was valued at cost or market value, whichever is lower. So because this principle was inappropriately applied, everything was all right, only inventory was misstated. So what you will do, you will issue qualified report. So if I say the definition once again, qualified report is issued when out of entire set of financial statements, the reservations are there on some of the items of financial statement. Then is adverse report. Adverse report is issued when, now see the change again, when auditor is having reservations on financial statements as a whole. So adverse report is the antonym of unqualified report. When I was telling you unqualified report, I was using the words unqualified report is issued when auditors are having no reservations on financial statements as a whole. But when I say adverse report is issued when auditors are having reservations on financial statements as a whole. जब आपको लगता है कि financial statements substantially या totality, when financial statements substantially or in totality are misstated, are containing misstatements, then what you will do, you will issue adverse report. Now what is disclaimer report? Disclaimer report is issued when auditors are not in a position to determine the reservations impact on the financial statements as a whole. जब ऑडिटर्स कोई और ओपिनियन एक्सप्रेस नहीं कर पाते हैं, तब वो डिस्क्लेमर रिपोर्ट इशू करते हैं. इफ आई से दिस विद एन एग्जांपल, आई विल रिपोर्ट लाइक दिस: since the books of accounts and other records were destroyed in Chennai floods and were not made available to us for audit examination, we are unable to express any opinion on financial statement. तो जब आपको एविडेंस ही नहीं मिलता है, मैनेजमेंट कॉपरेट नहीं करता है, जिसकी वजह से आप पूरे के पूरे फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स, बड़े सब्सटैंशियल फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स के ऊपर अपना ओपिनियन एक्सप्रेस नहीं कर पाते हैं, तो आप डिस्क्लेमर रिपोर्ट इशू करेंगे. Now, what is emphasis of matter paragraph report and other matter paragraph report? Let us understand this through an historical background. So historically, what happened way back in 2008 or 2009, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India issued AS 30, 31, and 32 about financial instruments. Now we did have those very days. We did have Companies Accounting Standard Rules 2006. So what the law was telling? Law was telling, I mean the company law. The law was telling that companies need to comply only those accounting standards which are notified by NACAS. NACAS stands for National Advisory Committee on Accounting Standards. I will use the word central government now. So earlier days, what was happening? It was the requirement that company will comply only those accounting standards which are notified by central government. On the other hand, ICI notified AS 30, 31, and 32. So those days, what happened? Ministry of Corporate Affairs notified AS 1 to AS 29, but ICI announced AS 1 to AS 32. And the Chartered Accountants Act states, if the auditors have not complied with the standards issued by ICI while discharging attached functions, then the auditors will be guilty of professional misconduct. Now, this came with a TIF. The TIF was, auditor was telling the management that you must comply with AS 30, 31, and 32. If you will not comply, I will qualify the report. Management, on the other hand, was saying that we are not wrong. Chartered Accountants Act is not applicable upon us. It is you on whom Chartered Accountants Act is applicable, so you cannot qualify the report. बिकॉज कंपनी ने कहा कि मुझे तो वही एएस कंप्लाई करना है जो कि मिनिस्ट्री ने नोटिफाई किया. मिनिस्ट्री हैज नॉट नोटिफाइड एएस 30, 31 and 32. Now this was a kind of conflict or a tiff between auditors and the companies. And meanwhile, what happened? Institute of Chartered Accountants of India issued SA 706, where two more paragraphs were discussed: emphasis of matter paragraph and other matter paragraph. This came as a rescue. Now what is the rescue? वो कहते हैं ना, कभी कभी आप अपनी जगह ठीक है, मैं अपनी जगह ठीक हूं. तो जब मैनेजमेंट अपनी जगह ठीक हो, ऑडिटर अपनी जगह ठीक हो, वहां पर एम्फेसिस ऑफ मैटर रिपोर्ट इशू की जा सकती है. तो व्हाट हैपेंड? द स्टैंडर्ड SA 706 says emphasis of matter paragraph report is issued for those matters. Now be very careful with the words I'm using. Emphasis of matter paragraph report is issued for those matters which, number one, are fundamental to the understanding of users of financial statements. Number one. Number second, these matters are already disclosed in notes to accounts. And number third, these matters do not require any qualification. तो तीन शर्तें हैं. पहली शर्त कि जो मैटर हो वो इंपॉर्टेंट हो, फंडामेंटल हो यूजर्स की अंडरस्टैंडिंग के लिए. दूसरी शर्त, ये मैटर नोट्स टू अकाउंट्स में डिस्क्लोज किया जा चुका हो. और तीसरी शर्त, इस मैटर पर क्वालिफिकेशन ना बनती हो. If these three conditions are fulfilled, then what we can do as auditors, we can issue emphasis of matter report. How this report is issued? We'll create a paragraph on the face of the audit report. Will ask the management to disclose in the notes to accounts that why you not have complied with AS 30, 31, and 32. So what management will do? In the notes to accounts, management will write AS 30, 31, and 32 are not followed by the company because these are not notified by the central government. Now what auditor will do? Auditor will come on the main face of the audit report and he will write, we draw the attention to note number X of notes to accounts regarding non-compliance of AS 30, 31, and 32 because of non-notification by the central government. Our opinion is not modified on the matter. So these words, our opinion is not modified on such matter, will result in emphasis on a particular matter. So this is one of the historical background how it started. ये शुरुआत कैसे हुई, मैंने आपको इसका हिस्ट्री का बैकग्राउंड बताया है. Now let me come to a different question and I would request the audience to pass on the answers. The question is, let us take a situation. विजय जी का कोई क्लाइंट है और वो क्लाइंट जो है फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस में चल रहा था. One of the client was in financial crisis. He was not able to fulfill the borrowing part. He was not able to fulfill the customer orders also. So Vijay ji decided that the going concern is inappropriate. Because going concern नहीं है तो विजय जी ने कहा कि इसका रिपोर्ट में क्वालिफाई करूंगा because going concern will no longer be appropriate. Now before issuing the report, विजय जी sat with the client और क्लाइंट से कहा कि आपका जो पोजीशन है गोइंग कंसर्न का ठीक नहीं है, मैं रिपोर्ट क्वालिफाई करने वाला हूं, आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं? Now what the client reciprocated? Client replied, कि विजय जी आप रिपोर्ट क्वालिफाई करने से पहले मेरी बात तो सुने। मैं मानता हूं कि फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन अभी ठीक नहीं है, बट वी हैव अप्लाइड टू द बैंकर्स टू रीशेड्यूल एंड रीस्ट्रक्चर द लोन। दिस इज पॉइंट नंबर वन। देन विजय जी ने कहा कि ठीक है आपने लोन के लिए बोला, बट व्हाट अबाउट दी फर्दर सेल्स? तो क्लाइंट कहता है कि हमारे कुछ सेल्स ऑर्डर्स हैं जो कि हमने साइन किए हैं, नए कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स, और हमें लगता है कि आने वाले 6 मंथ्स के अंदर अंदर वी विल हैव अ गुड रेवेन्यू। तो व्हाट दे वर शेयरिंग, द मैनेजमेंट वाज शेयरिंग इट्स प्लान विद विजय जी एंड हाउ दे कैन बी बैक इनटू ऑपरेशंस। दीज प्लान्स बीइंग शेयर्ड आर कॉल्ड एज मिटिगेटिंग फैक्टर्स। तो क्या हुआ, मैनेजमेंट ट्राइड द बेस्ट to convince Vijay ji that as an auditor he must not qualify the report on account of being going concern as inappropriate. तो जब विजय जी को लगा कि मैनेजमेंट की बात ठीक हो सकती है, when he was pretty much convinced, in that very case qualification is not required, rather he can issue emphasis of matter. So for this very purpose what Vijay ji will advise the client कि आप अपने नोट्स में बता दीजिए how you have the mitigating factors, and then Vijay ji will come to the audit report and two things will happen. Number one, on the face of the audit report, he will create a paragraph, material uncertainty about going concern. And he will mention that there are certain uncertainties about going concern. And more importantly, on the same face, he will add one more paragraph, emphasis of matter. There he will highlight that due to certain mitigating factors about going concern inappropriateness, qualification is not required. जब हम रिपोर्टिंग पैराग्राफ्स की बात करेंगे illustrations में, we'll discuss in detail. But for the time being, simply remember one thing. Whenever mitigating factors are there, auditors have to take a call whether to issue emphasis of matter report or qualified report. In most of the cases, when mitigating factors are there and sufficient evidence is there that mitigating factors are present, you need not qualify the report, rather emphasis of matter report can be issued. We will discuss through some examples. Now, other one is other matter paragraph. Let us take a situation. You were appointed as an auditor, say on 30th April 2024, and the physical stock counting already took place on 31st March 2024. So what happened? The date on which you were appointed, you cannot physically verify the stock count on 31st March 2024. So what you will do? You will describe your responsibility in other matter paragraph. So in the other matter paragraph, we will write that we were not able to physically count the stock as on 31st March because our appointment itself was made on 30th April. This is example number one. Let us example number second also. Your client is having some branches and the branch auditors never provided you the audit report. So there were, let us assume, 10 branches. Out of 10 branches, 2 branch auditors failed in providing the audit report to you in time. So it makes no sense to stop your audit report. So what you will do? In the other matter paragraph, you will write out of 10 branches, 2 branches have not provided the audit report, and hence our audit opinion is based upon report of 8 branches only. So what is happening over here? In other matter paragraph, auditor highlights his responsibilities. So please understand, other matter paragraph cannot be called as an opinion paragraph. There is no opinion being expressed in other matter paragraph. To understand these things, just see 2 more charts. Let us summarize this way. So what is the decision tree? The decision tree is whether auditor is having reservations on whole of the financial statements. If the answer is no, you will issue unqualified report. If the auditor is having reservations on whole of the financial statements, you will issue adverse report, that is yes part. Whether the reservations are on some items of financial statements, you will issue qualified report. And if the reservations impact is not determinable at all, you will issue disclaimer report. I have a small question now, and I would request, don't search on Google for this answer. Let us take a situation. There were total 100 items in financial statements: wages, purchases, sales, interest income, interest expense, and all these things. Out of all the 100 items, for 1 or 2 items, audit evidence was not available. So there was a lack of audit evidence. So for example, there was a payment of telephone bill. So for telephone bill, evidence was not available. Now question arises, if evidence is not available for few items out of the financial statements as a whole, what kind of report I should issue? Unqualified report, qualified report, adverse report, or disclaimer? Any answers? So if evidence is not available for few items out of financial statements as a whole, what kind of report should be issued? So please take a note. When evidence for some of the items is not available, then we will issue qualified report. When evidence is not available for most of the items of financial statements, we will issue adverse report. Now, keeping these things in mind, let us have a sample reporting over here. So understand very carefully. This is sample reporting only, just for the sake of convenience of understanding. What kind of language we will be using in unqualified report? On the basis of information and explanation given to us, together with our audit examination, we report that financial statements are reflecting true and fair view for the year 23-24. Qualified report. On the basis of information and explanation given to us, together with our audit examination, except that. Please focus these words, except that. I will tell you something on this word also. Except that inventory is valued on LIFO basis, which is not as per AS2, and depreciation is not as per AS10. We report that rest of the financial statements are reflecting true and fair view for the year 23-24. Please take a note of my statement on your notepad, which is important. Now you cannot use the word subject to. Earlier days when qualified report was issued, people were using word subject to. Like for example, on the basis of information and explanation given to us, together with our audit examination, subject to inventory being valued on LIFO basis, which is not as per AS2, and depreciation is not as per AS10, we report that rest of the financial statements are reflecting true and fair view. So subject to words are prohibited now. So each one of the listener must take a note as per SA 705. While issuing the qualified report, the words subject to cannot be used. The proper words are only except that. So you have to use the word except that only. Adverse report. The language could be on the basis of information and explanation given to us. Together with our audit examination, we report that financial statements are not reflecting true and fair view for the given year. If you will see, adverse report is just antonym to unqualified report. Next is disclaimer report. Since the books of accounts and other records were destroyed by fire and were not made available to us for audit examination, we are unable to express any opinion on financial statements for the year 23-24. I can give one more example. Since the books of accounts and other records were in the possession of Income Tax Department and were not made available to us for audit examination, we are unable to express any opinion on financial statements for the year 23-24. Now, how about EOM report? EOM stands for Emphasis of Matter report. The language of reporting illustratively could be, we invite the attention of users of financial statements to note XYZ of notes to accounts regarding appropriateness of going concern assumption due to presence of certain mitigating factors as described there in such note. So when mitigating factors are present, instead of issuing qualified report, the auditors can issue emphasis of matter report. And then you will write the last sentence here. Our opinion is not modified for this matter. Then is OM report. OM stands for other matter paragraph report. What it says, we report that we have not considered the audited results of two branches respectively of Coimbatore and Cochin as their branch auditors have not furnished their audit report till date. We further report that we have not observed the physical count of inventory as on 31st March 2024 as our appointment was made subsequent to that date on 30th April 2024. So I believe at a macro level, you must have understood what are the types of audit report and why these types need to be understood. Simply putting, the types need to be understood because the company law simply says express true and fair view. But in what manner such true and fair view should be expressed is not given by the Companies Act. And for this purpose, types of audit report are important for us. Let me show you one more chart. Just see this thing. Summarily, what is happening? If audit evidence is being discussed, if the audit evidence is lacking for some of the items, audit evidence is not available, what we will do, we will issue qualified report. Like I told you, telephone bill was not available for a few items, other evidence is not available, we will issue qualified report. And that is why lack of audit evidence for some items will lead to qualified report. If audit evidence is totally not available or substantially not available, then we will issue disclaimer. When EOM report is issued when matter is significant for users' understanding of financial statements and it is already disclosed in notes to accounts and such matter do not require any qualification. So three conditions need to be fulfilled. Only then you can issue EOM report and then OM report. Matter is significant for users' understanding of auditors' responsibilities it will result in OM report, that is other matter paragraph report. So primarily, if I say the words of layman in much more professional sense, the professional wordings are like this. Impact of material misstatements, whether pervasive on financial statement. The word pervasive means totality of financial statements or substantial portion of financial statement. So whether the impact of material misstatements is pervasive on financial statements, if the answer is no, we will issue unqualified report. If the answer is yes, we will issue adverse report. If the impact is there on some items only, we will issue qualified report. And if the impact itself is not determinable, we will issue disclaimer report. So I believe up till now, the theoretical aspect should be clear to each one of you. I will stop myself here for a while. Should you have any queries up till now, you are most welcome to ask.
Queries can be posted on the chat, then we'll take it up, or you raise your hand, we'll unmute you one by one.
Now, meanwhile, the queries are coming up. The words used are material misstatements, and the word is misstatement. Can anyone please tell me what is the meaning of word misstatement? So for this purpose, people, you must understand we have SN number 450. SN number 450 defines misstatement. What is misstatement? Misstatement is the difference between what is presented in the financial statements and what should have been presented in the financial statements as per applicable financial reporting framework. That is AS, Ind AS, Schedule 3. And what they say further, misstatement can arise in amount, classification, presentation, or disclosures. This is what AS 450 states. Now, the law was telling you if the impact of material misstatements is pervasive on financial statements, issue adverse report. Is not pervasive on financial statements, issue clean report. Is there on some items of financial statements, issue qualified report. If pervasive impact itself is not determinable, issue disclaimer report. With this background and the definition of misstatement, which you can see on the screen, now let me go back to the first question from where I started my speech. The question is, the client has not rounded off the financial figures. The client has not rounded off the financial figures. The impact is not there on financial statements because whatever was supposed to be debited is required to be credited also. So whether non-rounding off of financial statements by the client requires qualification or not, that is the question. So first of all, ask yourself whether non-rounding off is resulting in misstatement. Yes or no? The definition is before you. If the financial figures are not rounded off, whether it is resulting in misstatement. Because primarily what is misstatement? What was supposed to be done and what is done de facto. And the difference between these two is nothing but your misstatement. And this misstatement can arise in amount, classification, presentation, and disclosure. So one thing is certain, Schedule 3 is not complied with, which was supposed to be complied with. Because Schedule 3 is not complied with, it's a contravention of Schedule 3, and hence it is a misstatement. And where this misstatement is arising, this misstatement is arising in amount, presentation, and disclosure, not in classification. Classification means current and non-current classification. So one thing is certain that there is a misstatement. Now, what you need to understand, SA 705. So I'm saying it as a question. SA 705 says that if a legal requirement is contravened, then it should be qualified. So in this case, what will happen? Because rounding off has not been done, you have to qualify your report by virtue of the requirements of SA 705. How you will qualify? Simple words, on the basis of information and explanation given to us, together with our audit examination, except that the financial figures have not been rounded off as per the requirements of Schedule 3, we report that financial statements are otherwise reflecting true and fair view. So please take a note, if financial figures are not rounded off, then it warrants a qualification. I have one or two questions in the chat box. Let me go to these questions. There is one question. One or two telephone bills are missing. Will it be treated as lack of audit evidence? Yes. If one or two telephone bills are missing, it will be treated as lack of audit evidence. But the question arises, if this evidence is being lacking, whether we should issue qualified report or not. To come up to the qualified report, we also need to see whether misstatement because of this non-availability of audit evidence is getting material or not. So because 2 or 3 telephone bills are missing, and if the amount is meager amount or a small amount, in that very case, we will say that these misstatements which are not able to be evaluated are immaterial in nature, and hence no qualification is required. So what we need to understand, qualified report is issued when the impact on few of the items of financial statement is material. So we have to see material and then misstatement. Are you getting my point? Shirish ji, have you understood? So first is misstatement, then is evaluation of misstatement, and then we need to check whether the impact of this misstatement is material or immaterial. So if it is immaterial and the evidence is not available for that evaluation, obviously we will go with unqualified report. Else we have to check whether it is kind of impactful misstatement or not. But yes, one thing is certain, if rounding off is not made, then we have to see for qualification rather than a kind of a clean sheet report. There is a question by some other person also, Chandra Mohanji. Is there any change in the audit report from last year? As far as current year is concerned, sir, 2324, there is no change in the format of the audit report or content of the audit report. Only thing is we have to report an audit trail. So primarily audit trail was last year also, but yes, this year it is compulsory because the dates conflict was there in the last year. Otherwise, standard-wise, there is no change. Now, if you have understood all this stuff which we have discussed, let me discuss some case studies with you, and I would be happy to have your answer. So this is case study number 1. CA Samir is the statutory auditor of Tram Limited for the financial 21-22. While conducting the audit, CA Samir decided to issue an unmodified opinion, though he also concluded that a material uncertainty exists with respect to company's ability to continue as a going concern on account of pending litigation related to labor laws. He is of the view that company has made appropriate disclosures with respect to such pending litigation in the notes to accounts annexed to the financial statements of Tram Limited for the year 21-22. Explain how CA Samir will deal with the above situation in this audit report. Draft a relevant portion of audit report as well. Now, in this question, two things are quite critical to be considered. One is, if you see third row, in third row, it is written that CA Samir decided to issue unmodified opinion, though he also concluded that material uncertainty exists with respect to company's ability to continue as a going concern. So what is happening? The chartered accountant Samir, who is the auditor of this company, has made the mind that going concern is inappropriate. Company would be unable to continue as going concern because of the pending litigation. And then what he concluded, he also observed that this inability is also disclosed in notes to accounts. The question arises, when material uncertainty exists, now listen my words very carefully. When material uncertainty exists about going concern, mitigating factors are not there, but such material uncertainty is already disclosed in notes to accounts. I repeat my words once again. When material uncertainty about going concern exists, number 1, but there is no mitigation involved, number 2, and number 3, such material uncertainty is already disclosed in notes to accounts by the management. What should be done? Please be very careful. The words I'm using, there is no mitigating factor. So when mitigating factors are not there, material uncertainty is there, and such material uncertainty is already disclosed in notes to accounts, then what to do? For this purpose, we have essay number 705, and it says, in such a case, you have to have a separate paragraph in your audit report. The caption or the title of that paragraph will be material uncertainty related to going concern. Just see the language of reporting. If no mitigating factors are there, but material uncertainty is there and it is disclosed in the notes to account, then what to do? In your audit report, you will have a paragraph, material uncertainty related to going concern, and you will write below this paragraph, for example, we draw attention to note number 10 in the financial statements, which indicates that the outcome of a litigation on account of labor laws is pending in case of the company during the year ended on 31st March 22. As stated in note number 11, this event or condition indicate that a material uncertainty exists that may cast significant doubt on the company's ability to continue as a going concern. Our opinion is not modified in respect of this matter. So please take a note. This case study number 1 is dealing with a situation where, I repeat, where material uncertainty exists, no mitigation factors are there, and such uncertainty is already disclosed in notes to account. If this will happen, then this is the sample reporting. What is sample reporting saying? That you have to have a separate paragraph on going concern material uncertainty. This is your case study number 1. Now come to case study number 2. XYZ Limited is a company engaged in manufacture of cranes. CA Sudhir is the statutory auditor of the company for the financial year 21-22. The company has taken long-term funding for fixed capital requirements and short-term funding for its working capital requirements. During the course of audit, CA Sudhir found that the company's financing arrangements are about to expire and the company is unable to renegotiate or obtain the replacement financing. As such, the company may be unable to realize its assets and discharge its liabilities in normal course of business. Notes to accounts annexed to the financial statements discuss the magnitude of financing arrangements, the expiration and total financing arrangements. However, financial statements do not include discussion on impact or availability of refinancing. Thus, financial statements and notes thereto do not fully disclose this fact. What kind of opinion should CA Sudhir issue in case of XYZ Limited? So just try to understand the difference between case study 1 and case study 2. In case 1 and case 2, one thing is common, material uncertainty but going concern exists. Second thing common is there are no mitigating factors. But third thing is important over here. In case study number 1, these facts were disclosed in notes to account. But in case study number 2, these facts are not disclosed in notes to account. Now the question arises, in case study number 2, if material uncertainty exists, number 1, no mitigation factors are there, number 2, but at the same time, these uncertain things are not disclosed in notes to accounts, then what should be done in our audit report? Any answer? So just see very carefully, as 705 says, in such a case, what you will do, you have to issue a different report. And that different report is called as qualified report. So when are we issuing qualified report? We are issuing qualified report when, in respect of going concern, there is a material uncertainty, no mitigation factors are there, and more importantly, these things are not disclosed in notes to account. So let me read the answer for you, then we will give a sample opinion also. In the present case, XYZ Limited is unable to renegotiate or obtain the replacement financing for its long-term loan and short-term funding requirements. This situation indicates the existence of a material uncertainty that may cast significant doubt on company's ability to continue as a going concern, and therefore, XYZ Limited may be unable to realize its assets and discharge its liabilities in normal course of business. Further, the financial statements of XYZ Limited do not disclose this fact adequately. So what we have to do now? Thus, the financial statements of XYZ Limited are materially misstated due to inadequate disclosure of material uncertainty. It's a contravention of Accounting Standard 1, which deals with going concern as fundamental accounting assumption. So what the CA will do? CA Sudhir in this case will express a qualified opinion as the effects on financial statements of this inadequate disclosure are material but not pervasive to the financial statements. So how this paragraph will be drafted? Just see the way the paragraphs are drafted. On the face of the audit report, you will have these two paragraphs. Para number 1, qualified opinion. But you will write over here, in our opinion and to the best of our information and according to the explanations given to us, except for the incomplete disclosure of the information referred to in the basis for qualified opinion section of our report, the aforesaid standalone financial statements give the information required by the Act means the Companies Act, in the manner so required and give a true and fair view in conformity with the accounting principles generally accepted in India of the state of affairs of XYZ Limited as at 31st March 22 and profit/loss for the year ended on that date. Now, what we will write in basis for qualified opinion, as discussed in note number 6, the company's financing arrangements are about to expire and the company has been unable to conclude renegotiations for obtaining the replacement financing. This situation indicates that a material uncertainty exists that may cast significant doubt on company's ability to continue as going concern. The financial statements do not adequately disclose this matter. So this way you will qualify for going concern material uncertainty when there are no mitigation factors and the facts are not disclosed in notes to come. Now let us discuss case study number 3. ABC Limited is a company engaged in manufacture of iron and steel bars. PP and Associates are statutory auditors of ABC Limited for the financial year 21-22. Now what happened during the course of audit, CA Prakash, the engagement partner, found that the company's financing arrangements have expired and the amount outstanding was payable on 31st March 2022. The company has been unable to renegotiate or obtain replacement financing and is considering filing for bankruptcy. These events indicate a material uncertainty that may cast significant doubt on company's ability to continue as a going concern, and therefore it may be unable to realize its assets and discharge its liabilities in normal course of business. The financial statements and notes thereto do not disclose this fact. What opinion should CA Prakash express in case of ABC Limited? So I put this question before the House and I give it 30 seconds. Please respond me back as to what kind of opinion should be issued in case study number 3. Any answers? So I got one answer by Anilji, adverse opinion, okay. Anilji, can you please tell me why adverse opinion? What is that element in this question which made you conclude that it should be adverse opinion?
They are already, the loans are not negotiating. They are thinking of bankruptcy.
Yes, this is the cutoff point.
This is a very serious issue
Yes.
according to me.
So ultimately, the company has
And
decided
they
that
have not disclosed it in the books also.
yes, there is no disclosure in the books, and more importantly, they have already gone for the decision that we will go for bankruptcy proceedings. So that means the company management also is in the mood of closing the business. So what we will do, we will issue adverse report. So just see here, in the present case, based on the audit evidence obtained, CA Prakash has concluded that material uncertainty exists related to events or conditions that may cast significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as a going concern, and entities considering bankruptcy. This is something important because it indicates that management is also not in a mood to have the mitigation and to continue. So the financial statements of ABC Limited omit the required disclosures as well. In such circumstances, CA Prakash should express an adverse opinion because the effects on the financial statements of such omission are material and pervasive. So what should be the sample reporting? You see the sample reporting over here. So again, the same thing. When you issue qualified report, you give the heading qualified opinion. Now you're issuing adverse report, so you will issue the heading as adverse opinion. And what the language could be? In our opinion, because of the omission of information mentioned in the basis of adverse opinion section of our report, the accompanying financial statement do not present fairly the financial position of the entity as at 31st March 22 and of its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with the accounting standard issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Basis for adverse opinion. Now, what you will write in the basis? The financing arrangements of ABC Limited has expired and the amount outstanding was payable on 31st March 2022. The entity has been unable to conclude renegotiations or obtain replacement financing and is considering filing for bankruptcy. This situation indicates that a material uncertainty exists that may cast significant doubt on company's ability to continue as a going concern. The financial statement do not adequately disclose this fact. This is the sample language of adverse opinion. I have one more question before the house. With due regards, many a times it is observed that we people are more into copying, editing, and pasting of the formats of audit reports. And due to this copy, edit, paste, sometimes the mistakes happen. I place before you this sample reporting, which you can see on the screen as answer number 3. Can you please tell me, in answer number 3, is there any technical error? Is there any technical error that has crept in while drafting the adverse opinion? Can you see any technical error over here? Any technical error? In my little experience, what I observed, generally this technical error happens because of copy, edit, and paste. So let me highlight this for you. Is there a technical error here? This yellow portion. Chandramohanji, already it is a separate reporting paragraph, so that is not an error. The error lies in this yellow highlighted area. Accounting standard issued by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. This is wrong. The correct scenario will be accounting standards notified under companies AS rules 2021. So I would request and suggest the audience, please check your audit reports for companies. And if in the audit reports meant for companies, this sentence is being used, accounting standards issued by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, please replace this sentence. This sentence is wrong. The proper words will be accounting standards notified under companies accounting standard rules 2021. So what we need to understand when we say accounting standards issued by ICAI, accounting standards issued by ICAI are relevant only for non-corporate entities. For company entities, the relevant accounting standards are those which are notified by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, because we are discussing accounting standards. So we will write companies accounting standard rules 2021. Had this been a case of Indian accounting standards, which is popularly called as Ind AS, then we must have written companies Ind AS rules 2015. So this is a kind of, I should say, mistake or overlooking scenario, which all of us as auditors need to discuss over and ponder over. So you see this case study number 4. And be very careful on this case study again. MNO Limited is a power generating company having its plants in northeastern states of the country. For the financial year 21-22, measures PRT and Associates are the statutory auditors of the company. During the course of audit, the audit team was unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about a single element of the consolidated financial statements. That is, the auditor was also unable to obtain evidence about the financial information of joint venture investment in XYZ Limited that represents over 90% of entities' net assets. What kind of opinion should these statutory auditors issue in such a case? So what is happening? For one of the element, for one of the item of financial statements, audit evidence is not available, but such item of financial statement itself is constituting 90% of company's net assets. The question is, what kind of evidence, what kind of opinion should be issued over here? Any answers? I got one answer from Chandra Mohanji, disclaimer. Okay. Any other answer? So let us analyze the situation. Chandra Mohanji's answer was correct. So, the law was saying that if impact of material misstatements is not determinable on pervasive financial, pervasive means substantial portion. So when one item itself is substantial and you are not having the evidence for the same, we will issue disclaimer opinion. So let us analyze this here. Measures PRT and Associates are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about the financial information of a joint venture investment that represents over 90% of entities' net assets. The possible effects of this inability to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence are both material and pervasive to the consolidated financial statement. Therefore, a statutory auditor should issue disclaimer opinion. So here disclaimer report will be issued. And how to have the language? Again, the same thing. Earlier you were using qualified opinion, then you used adverse opinion. Now this is example of disclaimer opinion. So heading is disclaimer of opinion. The language could be, for example, we do not express an opinion on the accompanying financial statements of MNO Limited because of the significance of matters described in the basis for disclaimer of opinion section of our report. We have not been able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to provide a basis for an audit opinion on these financial statements. Now, if we go to the basis for disclaimer section, what the language could be? The group's investments in its joint venture XYZ company is carried at rupees so and so on group's consolidated balance sheet, which represents over 90% of group's net assets as at 31st March 2022. We were not allowed access to the management and auditors of XYZ company, including XYZ company's auditors' audit documentation. As a result, we were unable to determine whether any adjustments were necessary in respect of group's proportional share of XYZ company's assets that it controls jointly, its proportional share of XYZ company's liabilities for which it is jointly responsible, its proportional share of XYZ income and expenses for the year, and the elements making up the consolidated statement of changes in equity and the consolidated cash flow statement. So primarily, what you are writing here, that we have nothing, because we have nothing to evaluate material misstatements or the impact thereto, we will issue disclaimer opinion. Disclaimer simply, if you say as a layman, disclaimer means that we cannot give any opinion about true and fair view because of the non-availability of audit evidence in totality or maybe non-cooperation by the management. Before I proceed further and discuss the other case study, I will come to the case study number 5 in a while. I would request all the listeners to listen my question carefully and then come up with the answer. And the simple request is don't search on Google. Let us take a situation. You are the auditor of ABC Limited and ABC Limited is undergoing corporate insolvency resolution process. My question to the people is, Section 134, subsection 1 of Companies Act states that financial statements should be approved by the management, that is the board, before it is being submitted to the auditor for their opinion thereon. तो क्या लिखा गया है कि financial statements पहले approve हो जाएंगी, उसके बाद auditor को उस पर report करना है. Now, if the company is into CARP, the directors are suspended and the management is in the hands of insolvency professional. Insolvency professional obviously will approve the financial statements and sign the financial statements also. My question to the people is, अगर एक company CARP में है, तो financial statements पर insolvency professional के तो sign होंगे ही, but क्या suspended directors को भी financial statements पर sign करना है? Any answer? I repeat my question. If the company is into CARP, that is corporate insolvency resolution process, it is quite imperative that insolvency professional will sign the financial statements. But whether suspended directors are also required to sign the financial statements of such a company which is under CARP. That is minimum 2 directors. Because section 134(1) says minimum 2 directors have to sign. I got one answer from Anilji as a no. Maybe other people could have also the answers as no. Shirishji is saying suspended directors will not agree. Yes, that's the real life problem, that they don't agree in most of the cases. Please take a note of my words. National Company Law Appellate Tribunal in CLC Industries Limited case. I repeat the words CLC Industries Limited case has held that when directors are suspended, they have no powers, but their duties are not coming to an end. So when directors are suspended, they are powerless people, but they are not dutyless people. The duties are still intact. And hence, if the company goes into CARP, the financial statements are required to be signed even by the suspended directors as provided by Section 134(1) manner. So minimum 2 directors have to sign the financial statements of the company into CARP. So I would request all the listeners who are doing the audits of companies and especially the companies which are into CARP please make it a surety. Please check and ensure that even the suspended directors are signing the financial statements. I repeat the case law name, and I'm typing in the chat window also. It is CLC Industries case by NCLAT. So you can search this case on Google. You will get the citation and all other things. And I must say, ensure that suspended directors are also sensitized about this kind of requirement, and the financial statement do have these signs. Now, case study number 5. CA Yash is the statutory auditor of Lakshmi Vardhan Limited for the financial 21-22 in respect of loans and advances of 55 lakhs given to Sarvagya Private Limited. The company has not furnished any agreement to CA Yash, and in the absence of the same, he is unable to verify the terms of repayment, chargeability of the interest, and other terms. What kind of opinion should CA Yash give in such a situation? Would your answer be different if such loan represents 90% of the total assets of the company? So in this case study number 5, primarily, there are 2 questions. So any answers from your side? Yes, any answer? Girish bhai, any answer? Chandra Mohan ji? So let us analyze the situation. In the present case, what is happening with respect to loans and advances of rupees 55 lakhs given to Sarvagya Private Limited? The company has not furnished any agreement to CA Yash. In absence of such an agreement, CA Yash is unable to verify the terms of repayment, chargeability of the interest, and other terms. For an auditor, while verifying any loans and advances, one of the most important audit evidence is loan agreement. Therefore, absence of such document in the present case tantamount to material misstatement in financial statements of the company. However, inability of CA Yash to obtain such evidence is though material but is not pervasive, so as to require him to give a disclaimer opinion. Hence, in the present case, CA Yash should give a qualified opinion. So, because one of the item is involved and it is not pervasive, what we will do, we will issue qualified opinion. But in the second case, when we say, would your answer be different if such loan represents 90% of the total assets? So that means it is becoming a kind of pervasive element. Substantially, the financial items are included. So then in that very case, it will be a disclaimer of opinion. So this question is somehow including 2 things. One is qualified and second is disclaimer. So the language I am not reading because the language we have already covered. Only one thing which we need to understand over here is if loan agreement is not made available, then if CARO is applicable, then in case CARO, we need to give appropriate reporting in para 3 second and para 3. Case study number 6. In the financial year 21-22, MSD Limited faced an extraordinary event, earthquake, which destroyed a lot of business activity of the company. These circumstances indicate material uncertainty on company's ability to continue as going concern. Due to such event, it may not be possible for the company to realize its assets or pay off the liabilities during the regular course of business. The financial statement and the notes to the financial statement of the company do not disclose this fact. What kind of opinion should the statutory auditor of MSD Limited issue in such circumstances? So any answer? This question is quite a repetition of the questions which we already discussed. So it is a kind of recapitulation. The material uncertainty is there, no mitigation is there, and no disclosure in notes to account is there. So what kind of report should be issued? What should be done? So again, the same thing, if you try to recollect, in the audit, in the report, that is the face of the audit report, you will have a separate paragraph, material uncertainty about going concern, and then you will write the language as per the given case study number 6. So this is what the case studies connotes about what kind of reports are there. Now, let me ask you a simple question from where I began my speech. Some of the debtors and creditor balances are subject to confirmation. So notes to counts are telling you that certain balances from debtors and creditors are subject to reconciliation, subject to confirmation. If this is the case, what kind of report should be issued? Qualified, adverse, or disclaimer, or clean report? So if I put this question on the screen, question is, certain debtors and creditors balances are subject to confirmation. This is mentioned in notes to accounts. Now the question is, what kind of report should be issued? Okay, I got one answer from Chandra Mohanji. We need to check the quantum of debtors and creditors with respect to total assets. So let us have one more question. Let us say this is question number 1. Now we have question number 2. Would your answer be different if such debtors or creditors constitute a 80% of company's net worth? So what would be the answers now? So what we need to understand, if I come to question number 1, where we are writing what kind of audit report should be issued, and we're assuming that it is not substantial portion. So when substantial portion is not involved, it will be a case of qualified report. It will go to qualified report. And when substantially the evidence is not available, evidence means the confirmation is not available substantially, then we will issue disclaimer report. I believe this point is clear to each one of you. I got one answer, and the gentleman is saying adverse report. See, adverse report cannot be issued. Adverse report means evidence is available, and after examining the evidence, you came to a conclusion that financial statements are materially misstated in totality. Here, what is happening? Evidence is not available. So that's why it is disclaimer. And when evidence is not available for few items, then it is qualified. So I would request all the listeners who are the auditors and are doing attestation function, please stop writing this statement in the audit report that certain balances are subject to reconciliation and confirmation. This is wrong. And for this purpose, you have to read SA 705 and SA 505 also. SA 505 deals with external confirmations. Now, having said that, let me come to the next leg of discussion. That is comparative information, corresponding figures, and comparative financial statement. Let us take a situation. Last year, the audit report was issued. And during the last year, the report issued was qualified, adverse, or disclaimer. So if last year audit report was qualified, adverse, or disclaimer, and no remedial action has been taken by the management to overcome that qualification remarks in the current year, then what you will do? I repeat my question. Last year audit report was either qualified, adverse, or disclaimer. And in the current year, what happened? You observed that company has taken no remedial action. So what kind of report you will issue in the current year? That is question number 1. Question number 2 is, last year, someone else was the auditor. Last year, someone else was the auditor. And in the current year, you are the auditor. So if the last year audit report were issued by someone else, whether in the current year audit report you need to mention anything. These are the 2 questions which are dealt by SA 710. So let me read this whole scenario for you. But before that, I need your answers. What is your view? That is, if no remedial action has taken place in the current year, what you will do? And number 2, if last year someone else was the auditor and current year you are the auditor, whether this fact needs any mentioning in the audit report of the current year. Any answers? So let us discuss this one by one. I got one answer from Chandra Mohanji. Okay, Chandra Mohanji, answer number 1 is correct. Basically, you are saying repeat the qualification or adverse remarks as the case may be. And what about number 2nd question? Someone else was the auditor last year and current year you are the auditor. So let us analyze the situation one by one. What does SA 710 says? SA 710 says, if the auditor becomes aware of the possible material misstatement in the comparative information while performing the current period audit. So in the current year, you are carrying out the audit. And during the course of audit, you came to an understanding that last year some figures were misstated. So while carrying out the current year audit, you came to an understanding that last year figures were also containing some misstatements which were overviewed or which were overlooked by the auditor that time. Then what you will do in the current year? The auditor shall perform such additional audit procedures as are necessary in these circumstances to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to determine whether a material misstatement exists. If the auditor has audited the prior financial statements, the auditor shall also follow relevant requirements of SA 560. SA 560 deals with subsequent events. So events occurring after balance sheet date need to be taken care of. And then is SA 580. SA 580 is management representation letter. You must be taking management representation letter. What does SA 580 says? The auditor shall request written representations for all the periods referred to in the auditor's opinion. The auditor shall also obtain a specific written representation regarding any prior period item that is separately disclosed in the current year statement of P&L. So primarily what is coming out? If in the current year, you came to an observation that last year some misstatements were there which remained unnoticed. So what you will do, first of all, you will take a management representation that these are the prior period errors. Then you will ensure that prior period errors are properly rectified in the current year. And then you will report accordingly. But the problem is, what if these errors are not rectified? And the last year audit report was either qualified, adverse, or disclaimer. For this purpose, SA 710 says, if auditor's report on the preceding period as previously issued included qualified, adverse, or disclaimer opinion, and such matter which resulted in qualified, adverse, or disclaimer opinion is resolved in the current year as per financial reporting framework. So if it is resolved, then nothing need to be done. That is, current year's audit report need not refer to the previously issued opinion. On the other hand, if the matter which resulted in qualified, adverse, or disclaimer opinion is not resolved, it is still there, it is not rectified, then what to do? Then you have to repeat the previous year qualification also. That is, current year's audit report should refer to both the periods with the financial impact to the extent practicable. So you need to give current year qualification also, and you need to repeat the previous year qualification also. But then the problem arises, what if the previous year auditor was someone else? For this purpose, SA 710 says, if the financial statements of the prior period were audited by a predecessor auditor, and the auditor is permitted by the law or the regulation to refer to the predecessor auditor's report, which in our country is allowed to refer to the previous audit report on corresponding figures and decides to do so, the auditor shall, the word is shall, state in other matter paragraph. So in other matter paragraph, in your audit report, what you will refer, you will mention that the financial statements of prior period were audited by the predecessor auditor. Number second, the type of opinion expressed by the predecessor auditor, and if the opinion was modified, the reasons therefore. Modified means qualified, adverse, or disclaimer. So if the last year opinion was qualified, adverse, or disclaimer, then you have to mention the reasons also in the current year audit report as to why the predecessor issued qualified, adverse, disclaimer report and the date of that report. So date of audit, last year audit report also needs a mentioning. Seemingly it is simple, but I have a question. SA 710 here says that if the predecessor auditor was different, then the financial statements of the then the audit report of the current year shall mention that financial statements of the prior period were audited by a predecessor auditor. Whether it is sufficient to write that previous year financial statements were audited by some other auditor, or shall we also mention the name of the predecessor auditor? Whether the name of predecessor auditor also needs a mentioning. क्या पुराने वाले ऑडिटर का नाम ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में देना है? Any answer? Whether the name of predecessor auditor is required to be given? Answer is no. Simply mention this fact that the previous year financial statements were audited by some other auditor. Name need not be given. So what we need to understand, अगर आपने इस साल किसी कंपनी का ऑडिट लिया है और पिछले साल कोई और ऑडिटर था, तो उस केस के अंदर आपको ये बताना है अपने ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में बिलो दी हेडिंग अदर मैटर पैराग्राफ that last year audit was carried out by someone else. Name need not be given. और अगर पुराने वाले ऑडिटर का रिपोर्ट क्वालिफाइड एडवर्स डिस्क्लेमर था तो साथ में ये बताना है कि उसका जो रीजन था क्वालिफिकेशन का या एडवर्स का या डिस्क्लेमर होने का वो क्या था, और आपको उसके साथ डेट ऑफ रिपोर्ट भी देना है. I will stop myself here. Up till now, if you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask. No questions? विजय जी, क्वेश्चंस नहीं आते हैं तो ऐसा लगता है या तो सबको सब कुछ समझ में आ गया है या फिर उनको मेरा लेक्चर पसंद नहीं आ रहा है.
अक्सर ऐसा ही होता है.
अक्सर ऐसा ही होता है, लेक्चर पसंद नहीं आता है.
नहीं, लोग क्या शर्माते हैं पूछने में.
शर्माते हैं पूछने में. Okay. So up till now, what we have covered is types of audit report. We have covered what will happen if the predecessor audit report was there, and what will happen when previous audit report was qualified adverse or disclaimer report. Now, the story is not that much simple. चंद्रमोहन जी, एग्जाम्पल सेपरेट रिपोर्टिंग पैराग्राफ. चंद्रमोहन जी अभी कवर किया ना सेपरेट रिपोर्टिंग का, जो अभी केस स्टडी से सारे वो एग्जाम्पल्स थे सेपरेट रिपोर्टिंग के. अब आप मुझे ये बता दीजिए चंद्रमोहन जी कि सेपरेट रिपोर्टिंग से व्हाट इज योर कनोटेशन, आप क्या पूछना चाह रहे हैं, बिकॉज वट एवर आई कवर्ड वाज सेपरेट रिपोर्टिंग पैराग्राफ ओनली. तो कोई स्पेसिफिक पैरा अगर आप पूछना चाहते हो तो बताइए मुझे. नाउ let me come to other leg of discussion. I think something is there. If audit trail is not there, Shirish ji, for audit trail please wait for third lecture or fourth lecture. तो जब हम फोर्थ लेक्चर करेंगे ना कंसिडरेशंस फॉर स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट, उसमें मैं ऑडिट ट्रेल कवर करूंगा. देन आई विल डिस्कस इन डिटेल. So I am coming to one more standard, SA 720. So SA 720 is auditor's responsibility in relation to other information in documents containing audited financial statements. तो इसको एज अ लेमैन में ब्रीफ करता हूँ. There could be scenario like that the information contained in audited financial statements is different from the explanations contained in director's report. डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट में जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है और ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है, उन दोनों के बीच में डिफरेंस है, इनकंसिस्टेंसी है, मिसमैच है. तो ऑडिटर क्या करे? लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड दिस थ्रू टू एग्जांपल्स. कंपनी का एनुअल रिपोर्ट आया, आपने कंपनी का एनुअल रिपोर्ट देखा. एनुअल रिपोर्ट के अंदर ऑडिट रिपोर्ट भी छपा हुआ था, प्रिंटेड था, डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट भी प्रिंटेड था. एज अ यूजर आपने जब ऑडिट रिपोर्ट पढ़ा तो आपको पता चला कि बेसिक अर्निंग पर शेयर ऑफ कंपनी इज ₹10 पर शेयर एंड डायल्यूटेड अर्निंग पर शेयर इज ₹8 पर शेयर. डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट के अंदर ईपीएस नहीं बताया हुआ. डायरेक्टर्स रिपोर्ट के अंदर क्या लिखा डायरेक्टर्स ने, दैट ईपीएस हैज इंप्रूव्ड इन द करंट ईयर एज कंपेयर टू द प्रीवियस ईयर. So if you see at a macro level, it seems like some kind of mismatch is there in the disclosure practices, and this is called as inconsistent information. Let us take one more example. एनुअल रिपोर्ट देखा आपने तो उसमें ऑडिट रिपोर्ट था, डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट था. ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में ऑडिटर ने लिखा CSR स्पेंडिंग इज नॉट मेड बाय द कंपनी ड्यूरिंग द ईयर बिकॉज ऑफ कैश क्राइसिस. ऑडिटर कहता है कि कंपनी का कैश पोजीशन अच्छा नहीं है, इसलिए CSR स्पेंडिंग नहीं किया. डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट में लिखा हुआ है CSR spending not made during the year because the company was not able to find suitable project for making such spending. However, the board of directors has the pleasure in recommending dividend of ₹10 per share to maintain the confidence of shareholders in the company. So again, this is the kind of mismatch. And this mismatch technically is called as inconsistent information. अभी क्वेश्चन ये उठता है कि अगर ये इनकंसिस्टेंसी ऑडिटर को पता चले तो वो रिपोर्ट कैसे करे? This is the simple question, but the technical side and the tactical side is, जिस दिन हम ऑडिट रिपोर्ट साइन करते हैं एथिकली एंड लीगली, ऑडिट रिपोर्ट के साथ डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट अवेलेबल नहीं होता. बिकॉज डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट जो आता है वो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट के बाद जनरली आता है. So the problem arises on the date of signing of audit report, the director report may not be available. Then what to be done? And that is the whole theme of SA 720. Now what does SA 720 says? Other information, आप इसको समझिएगा डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट. Other information should be read to identify material inconsistencies with audited financial statements. तो जब मैं बोलूंगा ना other information, आप मान के चलिए डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट की बात हो रही है. such other information to be obtained prior to the date of auditor's report. If not possible, then obtain ASAP. ASAP as soon as possible. तो normally क्या कर सकते हैं हम, जब ऑडिट रिपोर्ट साइन करते हैं तो हम डायरेक्टर्स को बोल सकते हैं कि आप एक ड्राफ्ट डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट हमसे शेयर कर लीजिए, so that we can identify the inconsistencies. But if it is not possible, then something need to be done otherwise. Now, after obtaining such other information, that is director report, consider if there is a need for the management to revise financial statements or other information. तो मान लीजिए आपको ड्राफ्ट डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट मिला और ड्राफ्ट डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट पढ़ने के बाद आपको लगता है कि देयर आर सम इनकंसिस्टेंसीज, तो व्हाट द ऑडिटर विल डू, फर्स्ट स्टेप इज ऑडिटर विल आस्क द मैनेजमेंट to revise the financial statements or other information as the case may be, so that the inconsistency may be taken care of. But that is not easy per se. Management may refuse to revise the inconsistency. So now what ICI says in S720, if the management refuses to revise those inconsistencies which are identified prior to the date of audit report, तो जो mismatches हैं, जो differences हैं, आपने उनको identify किया ऑडिट रिपोर्ट से पहले और आपने मैनेजमेंट से कहा कि आप इसको रिवाइज कर दीजिए, बट दे रिफ्यूज टू रिवाइज, वे कहते हैं कि हम रिवाइज नहीं करेंगे, देन व्हाट टू बी डन? So then ICS says that you have to communicate the same to TCWG. TCWG stands for those charged with governance. Like example ऑडिट कमेटी, तो अगर मैनेजमेंट रिफ्यूज किया तो आप ऑडिट कमेटी को बता दीजिए. अगर कंपनी की ऑडिट कमेटी नहीं है, जैसे कि स्मॉल कंपनीज में ऑडिट कमेटी नहीं होता, तो देन यू हैव टू इन्फॉर्म द सेम टू द मैनेजमेंट, दैट इज द बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स. And then number second, describe the inconsistency in the audit report. आप अपनी ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में बता दीजिए कि क्या डिफरेंसेस है, क्या इनकंसिस्टेंसी है. और नंबर थर्ड, कंसीडर विड्रॉल फ्रॉम द एंगेजमेंट, रिजाइन कर दीजिए. So if nothing is possible, then you can consider the withdrawal from engagement also. But the thing is, problem arises when on the date of audit report, you do not have the draft director report. तो मान लीजिए आपने ऑडिट रिपोर्ट साइन किया 31 जुलाई को और डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट आता है से 16 अगस्त को, और जब आपने डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट पढ़ा, यू फाउंड सम इनकंसिस्टेंसीज. अब ऑडिट रिपोर्ट तो रिवाइज नहीं कर सकते ना आप. तो द प्रॉब्लम अराइजेस इफ ऑन द डेट ऑफ साइनिंग ऑफ ऑडिट रिपोर्ट I do not have the copy of draft director's report, then what to be done? For this purpose, the language could be used in this manner. Just see very carefully. In your audit report, you will give a separate paragraph and it will be titled as other information paragraph. Below other information paragraph, you will use these kind of words. The company's board of directors is responsible. Let me highlight the mouse pointer. The company's board of directors is responsible for other information. The other information comprises the X report. X report means the director's report in my example. The other information comprises the director's report, but does not include the financial statements and our audit reports thereon, which we obtained prior to the date of this audit report, and Y report, which is expected to be made available to us after that date. तो अगर डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट आपको मिला नहीं है डेट ऑफ ऑडिट रिपोर्ट पर, तो हम क्या वर्ड्स यूज कर सकते हैं? Which is expected to be made available to us after that date. So these words, which is expected to be made available to us after that date, is a safety vet, जो कि डायरेक्टर रिपोर्ट नॉर्मली ऑडिट रिपोर्ट के बाद ही मिलता है. Ethically and legally, I must add on these words. And then further language will be, our opinion on the financial statements does not cover the other information, and we do not and will not express any form of assurance conclusion thereon. तो आप क्या कह रहे हैं कि जो inconsistency है, इस पर हम अपना कोई opinion नहीं दे रहे हैं. In connection with our audit of the financial statements, our responsibility is to read the other information identified above, and in doing so, consider whether the other information is materially inconsistent with the financial statements or our knowledge obtained in the audit, or otherwise appears to be materially misstated, and so on. So I would suggest the listeners, what you can do is, you can go to the website ica.org and you can download SS720. From SS720, you can download illustration number 4. That illustration number 4 is nothing but you can see on the screen. So आप illustration number 4 का जो format है, आप वो ले लीजिएगा और वो language use कर लीजिएगा for those cases where director report in draft format was not made available to you on the date of audit report or prior to the date of audit report. And this will be a sufficient compliance of reporting as per SA number 720. So I will stop myself here. If you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask. There is a question from Chandra Mohan ji, like uncertainty of going concern. Chandra Mohan ji, मैंने cover किया था uncertainty of going concern. आपको मैं दोबारा दिखा देता हूं एक बार. We have covered 2-3 questions on this thing. material, let me show you. Case study number 1 इसी बारे में था. Just see this case study number 1 once again. This is case study number 1. CA Samir is the statutory auditor of Tramfam Limited for the financial 21-22. While conducting the audit, CA Samir decided to issue an unmodified opinion, though he also concluded that a material uncertainty exists with respect to the company's ability to continue as a going concern on account of pending litigation related to labor laws. He is of the view that company has made appropriate disclosures with respect to such pending litigation in notes to accounts annexed to the financial statement of Tramfam Limited for the year 21-22. तो कैसा रिपोर्ट आना चाहिए? यहाँ पर आपका सेपरेट रिपोर्ट आएगा मटेरियल अनसर्टेनिटी का, क्योंकि नोट्स टू अकाउंट्स के अंदर आपने इसको डिस्क्लोज करने की बात की है. देखिए यहाँ पर लिखा हुआ है, इज ऑफ द व्यू दैट कंपनी हैज मेड एप्रोप्रिएट डिस्क्लोजर्स. तो जब एप्रोप्रिएट डिस्क्लोजर्स हो जाते हैं, मटेरियल अनसर्टेनिटी होता है लेकिन मिटिगेशन फैक्टर्स नहीं होते हैं, तो आप सेपरेट रिपोर्ट करते हैं एज मटेरियल अनसर्टेनिटी अबाउट गोइंग कंसर्न. तो दिस आई ऑलरेडी कवर्ड. चंद्रमोहन जी, अब बताइए, इसमें कोई डाउट हो तो पूछिए आप. So this is the separate reporting for going concern material uncertainty. तो विजय जी, बिकॉज क्वेश्चंस नहीं है तो हमारे पास कुछ टाइम सेव हो गया है. शुड वी रैप अप और शुड वी डू समथिंग मोर ऑन द डिस्कशन?
आई लीव इट टू यू. अगर 10-15 मिनट कुछ कर सकते हैं तो फिर मैं इनको, क्योंकि एक्चुअली मैंने म्यूट करके रखा है, जो हाथ उठाएगा या क्वेश्चन आ रहा है इस पे, नहीं तो डिस्टर्बेंस होता है.
तो आप एक बार अनम्यूट कर दीजिए, किसी एक क्वेश्चन से तो पूछ लेंगे, अदरवाइज वी शुड रैप अप.
अभी मैं फिर इसको ओपन कर रहा हूँ, जिसको पूछना हो हाथ ऊपर करके अनम्यूट करके बात कर सकता है. मैंने ओपन कर दिया है. एनीबॉडी दे कैन जस्ट अनम्यूट एंड स्टार्ट.
किसी भी पार्टिसिपेंट कोई क्वेरी हो, दे कैन अनम्यूट देमसेल्व्स एंड दे कैन आस्क अदरवाइज.
अब इसको नीचे करिए आपके शेयरिंग को, तो लोगों को शक्ल दिखेगी तो फिर जवाब आएगा.
चलिए, अगर कोई क्वेरी नहीं है तो आई हैव सम क्वेरीज व्हिच आई विल डिस्कस विदाउट पीपीटी. अभी ऐसा करिए विजय जी, आप म्यूट कर दीजिए फिर सभी को.
हाँ, वो म्यूट पे ही है. मैंने खाली अनम्यूट अलाउ कर दिया था, वो ब्लॉक कर देता हूँ.
Okay. So I have a small query. If you do not have any query, when we discuss about audit reports, we discuss the types: unmodified report, qualified report, disclaimer report, adverse report, emphasis, and then we discussed other matter paragraph. Can in this single report, एक ही रिपोर्ट में क्या क्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट और अनक्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट का कॉम्बिनेशन हो सकता है? ऐसे ही क्या एक ही रिपोर्ट में डिस्क्लेमर रिपोर्ट और क्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट का कॉम्बिनेशन हो सकता है? ऐसे ही क्या क्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट और एम्फेसिस ऑफ मैटर रिपोर्ट का कॉम्बिनेशन हो सकता है? बिकॉज वन थिंग इज सर्टेन, अदर मैटर इज नॉट अ ओपिनियन, सो वी विल नॉट डिस्कस अदर मैटर, क्योंकि ओपिनियन ही नहीं है वो. तो अगर एक बार फिर से सोचें, क्या एक ही रिपोर्ट में क्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट का पैराग्राफ और एम्फेसिस ऑफ मैटर रिपोर्ट पैराग्राफ हो सकता है? इज इट पॉसिबल? Any answers? You can type the answer in chat box. So please understand, एक ही रिपोर्ट में किसी एक आइटम के लिए क्वालिफिकेशन हो सकता है, किसी दूसरी आइटम के लिए एम्फेसिस हो सकता है. So there can be different matters. Like for example, I can qualify the report for improper valuation of inventory, and I can issue emphasis of matter for going concern when mitigating factors are present. But depending upon case to case, this will happen. Let me show you one more thing. Just give me a moment. एक केस स्टडी और करते हैं. एक केस स्टडी और करते हैं जो मुझसे लगता है कि हो जानी चाहिए. So let us do one case study where material uncertainty about going concern is there. It is already disclosed in notes to accounts, and more importantly, mitigating factors are also present. तो अभी तक जो हमने केस स्टडी किया था उसमें मिटिगेटिंग फैक्टर्स नहीं था. अभी हम एक केस स्टडी करते हैं जिसमें मिटिगेटिंग फैक्टर्स मान लेते हैं कि है. तब क्या होगा? Just see on the screen. So if I assume that going concern is having the material uncertainty, It is properly disclosed in notes to accounts. But now we have mitigating factors also. Mitigating factors बोले तो कि कंपनी को लगता है कि हमारे पास alternative mechanism है and we will back into the business. Like for example, one of the client was there, his factory was destroyed by fire, and the auditor was of the view that going concern is becoming inappropriate. So before issuing the report, the auditor and the management sat together, and management told the auditor, please do not qualify the report because we have filed the insurance claim and very soon we will get in the compensation and we will revive the business. They said we have also approached the bankers and bankers have told us that they will reschedule the loan facilities. तो ऐसा करते करते क्या हुआ कि मैनेजमेंट ने काफी कुछ बताया कि बिजनेस वो अपना वापस रिवाइव कर लेंगे. तो देयर वर सेवरल मिटिगेटिंग फैक्टर्स. ऑडिटर ने क्या किया, जो ये मिटिगेटिंग फैक्टर्स था ये सारा डॉक्यूमेंट किया, मैनेजमेंट रिप्रेजेंटेशन लेटर लिया. जब ये सब कुछ हो जाता है, नोट्स अकाउंट में डिस्क्लोजर आ जाता है, तो तब क्या करें? तब देयर इज नो नीड टू गिव अ सेपरेट पैराग्राफ ऑफ मटेरियल अनसर्टेनिटी. Rather, you will give a separate paragraph of emphasis. And we can use either of these two languages. So sample language number one is, you will give a separate item heading as emphasis the matter, and you will write the paragraph as, without qualifying our report, we invite the attention of users of financial statements to note XYZ of notes to accounts regarding appropriateness of going concern assumption due to presence of certain mitigating factors as described therein such note. एक तो ये language हो सकता है, or otherwise the alternative language could be, we invite the attention of users of financial statements to note XYZ of notes to accounts regarding appropriateness of going concern assumption due to presence of certain mitigating factors as described therein such note. Our opinion is not modified in respect of this matter. So either of the language you can use for emphasizing this kind of case. Let me ask you one or two more questions for the sake of healthy discussion. So I raised this question before the house orally. एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन बनाते हैं. Let us take a situation. कंपनी है ABC लिमिटेड. ABC लिमिटेड का जो अकाउंटेंट है, the accountant of ABC लिमिटेड absconded with cash. अकाउंटेंट के पास कैश होता था और वो मान लीजिए कि कुछ कैश लेकर abscond हो गया. He is not traceable. The company filed a complaint with the police station, and with the help of police efforts, the accountant was caught hold of. तो मान लीजिए कि मई के महीने में accountant absconded, and then in 2-3 months the accountant was captured and the money was also recovered. अब आपके लिए जो क्वेश्चन है लिसनर्स, क्वेश्चन ये है कि आपके पास ये फैक्ट्स आए. फैक्ट नंबर 1, अकाउंटेंट ने पैसा चुराकर भाग लिया. दूसरा फैक्ट ये आया कि पुलिस वालों के एफर्ट से, आपकी हेल्प से जो अकाउंटेंट था वो पकड़ा गया और पैसा रिकवर भी हो गया. क्या ये वाला मैटर ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में डिस्क्लोज किया जाएगा? और अगर डिस्क्लोज करेंगे तो कैसे करेंगे, किस पैराग्राफ में करेंगे? एनी आंसर? तो आप शर्माइए नहीं मुझसे, मैं सबसे जूनियर ही हूं. कुछ लोग होंगे जो मुझसे जूनियर होंगे. तो एनी आंसर्स? आई गोट वन आंसर एज अदर मैटर. अच्छा अनिल जी, अगर हम इसको अदर मैटर बोलते हैं ना तो गलत आंसर हो जाएगा. अदर मैटर इज गिवन ओनली टू डिस्क्राइब ऑडिटर्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज. यहाँ पर हम कोई ऑडिटर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी तो बता नहीं रहे. रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कैसा हो सकता है कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल मैंने ब्रांच ऑडिटर का रिपोर्ट नहीं लिया या मैंने इन्वेंट्री का काउंट नहीं किया, तो अदर मैटर तो नहीं होगा. आई गोट वन आंसर महेश्वरी जी, वी शुड नॉट रिपोर्ट. महेश्वरी जी गलत जवाब हो जाएगा. वी हैव टू रिपोर्ट दिस थिंग. So what we need to understand, as per SA 706, this will be reported in emphasis of matter paragraph. Why emphasis of matter paragraph? Because this is fundamental to users understanding. Why fundamental? Because this demonstrates that the controls were weak, where accountant was somehow having the breach of controls and he ran away with the cash. So this is important matter. एक तो ये मैटर इंपॉर्टेंट है. दूसरा, कोई कॉन्ट्रावेंशन यहाँ पर नहीं हुआ तो कोई क्वालिफिकेशन नहीं चाहिए. तीसरा कि मैनेजमेंट इसको नोट्स में बताएगा. मैनेजमेंट हैज टू टेल दिस थिंग इन नोट्स टू अकाउंट्स कि ये सब कुछ हुआ था बाय वर्च्यू ऑफ सम कंटिंजेंट इवेंट्स एंड अदर थिंग्स. तो इसके ऊपर आपको एम्फेसिस करना पड़ेगा. So what we need to understand, if during the year some lapses have taken place which were rectified at a later stage, these are reportable as emphasis of matter. एक छोटा सा सवाल मैं और पूछता हूं आपसे, क्वेश्चन नंबर 3. In case of public companies, whatever managerial remuneration is payable, that managerial remuneration is payable up to a threshold. For example, the managerial remuneration cannot exceed 11% of net profits. If it exceeds 11% of net profits, then shareholder approval is required. तो अभी हुआ क्या कि एक पब्लिक कंपनी ने मैनेजरियल रेमुनरेशन पे कर दिया. Let us say the remuneration was paid in the month of May and the amount paid was exceeding 11%. At a later stage, the company obtained approval of the shareholders. तो shareholders ने कहा कि जो भी excess payment हुआ है, we approve it and it is ratified. That payment is proper. Now question arises whether this kind of thing requires any reporting in the audit report. तो कंपनी ने पहले तो एक्स्ट्रा पे किया, बाद में शेयरहोल्डर का अप्रूवल ले लिया. So things which were bad now became good. So whether this kind of scenario needs reporting in the audit report, answer again is yes. And this is reportable under emphasis of matter paragraph. I believe this point is clear to each one of you about emphasis of matter. So I must say, in my real experience, what I found, majority of the chartered accountants somehow, instead of issuing qualified report, issue emphasis of matter paragraph report. So please understand, emphasis of matter paragraph and this qualified report are not substitute of each other. कई बार ऐसा होता है, क्लाइंट कहता है क्वालिफाई मत करो, ऑडिटर कहता है कि मुझे रिपोर्ट तो करना ही है, तो क्या करते हैं, बीच का रास्ता निकालते हैं. और बीच का रास्ता निकालते हैं कि ठीक है क्वालिफाई नहीं करते लेकिन इसको एम्फसाइज कर देते हैं. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, एज फार एज रेगुलेटर्स आर कंसर्न्ड, यू कैन नॉट टेक एन एक्सक्यूज. आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि मैंने इसको बताया तो था ही, क्वालिफाई नहीं किया तो क्या हुआ, एटलीस्ट ऑडिट रिपोर्ट पर ये रिफ्लेक्ट तो हो रहा है. दिस विल बी अ लेम एक्सक्यूज. Improper selection of the reporting paragraphs is also a professional misconduct, and we need to be very careful what kind of report we are choosing. And I must ask you one more question, although I will discuss this thing on day 4, but still I should ask this question here itself. मान लीजिए आपने ऑडिट रिपोर्ट इशू किया और एजीएम 30 सितंबर को होने वाला है. ऑन द डेट ऑफ एजीएम जो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट आपका डिस्कस हो रहा था, यू फाउंड दैट कि ऑडिट रिपोर्ट के अंदर कुछ आइटम्स छूट गए थे. यू लेफ्ट ओवर सम आइटम्स बिकॉज मैनेजमेंट नेवर गेव दोस आइटम्स बिफोर यू. So what happened on the AGM date, or maybe a day prior to AGM, you came to know that certain items were left out from your place because of the limitation of scope casted by management. Management ने cooperate ही नहीं किया. अब आपके पास नए आइटम सामने आ जाते हैं. अब जब नए आइटम सामने आते हैं तो आपने क्या किया, एजीएम में ऑडिट रिपोर्ट अडॉप्ट होने से पहले आपने अपना ऑडिट रिपोर्ट रिवाइज कर दिया. तो द क्वेश्चन अराइजेस, नंबर 1, can the auditor revise his report if new items are coming to his observation for the current year, either on the date of AGM or prior to the date of AGM? This is question number 1. And question number 2, if the audit report is so revised, whether it will be resulting in any kind of gross negligence and hence a professional misconduct on the auditor. क्या कल को शेयर होल्डर से कह सकते हैं कि ऑडिटर ने ऑडिट ठीक से नहीं किया था, he is guilty of negligence and hence the professional misconduct. तो what about question number 1? क्या आप अपनी ऑडिट रिपोर्ट को अपनी इच्छा से एजीएम से पहले या एजीएम के दिन रिवाइज कर सकते हैं अगर आपके पास कुछ नए आइटम्स आ जाते हैं? कैन वी रिवाइज इट? बिकॉज एजीएम के बाद रिवाइज करना होगा तो हमें एनसीएलटी अप्रूवल चाहिए होगा. एजीएम से पहले करना है तो एनसीएलटी अप्रूवल नहीं चाहिए. तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन का आंसर है यस, यू कैन रिवाइज. First question का आंसर है you can revise. There is no law which stops you from revision. But the second question is, अगर आप रिवाइज करते हो तो शेयर होल्डर्स में feel disgruntled, they may feel somehow aggrieved also, and out of this disgruntledness they may file a complaint against you to ICAI. तो क्या ये केस है gross negligence का? Is it a case of gross negligence? Any answer? Some people may say yes, some people may say no also. कुछ लोग कह सकते हैं कि आपने ऑडिट अच्छे से नहीं किया था, कुछ लोग कह सकते हैं आपने ऑडिट अच्छे से किया था बट मैनेजमेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं दिया था. So please take a note of this judgment. G. Patabi Ramacharya case. In G. Patabi Ramacharya case, it was held that if the audit report is revised by the auditor before adoption at the AGM, it will not be considered as an act of gross negligence. ग्रॉस नेग्लिजेंस तब होता जब ऑडिटर चुप रहता और ऑडिट रिपोर्ट रिवाइज नहीं करता, लेकिन उसने रिवाइज कर दिया ऑडिट रिपोर्ट को सही समय पर, इसीलिए इसको ग्रॉसली नेग्लिजेंट नहीं माना जाएगा। जजमेंट का नाम है जी पटाभी रामाचार्य केस। मैं इसको चारों को टाइप कर देता हूँ, जी पटाभी रामाचार्य। तो व्हाट वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड, आप अगर ऑडिट कर रहे हैं और आपको रिवीजन करने की जरूरत पड़ती है बिफोर द एजीएम और एट द एजीएम डेट बिकॉज ऑफ द न्यू मैटर्स कमिंग टू लाइमलाइट, देन देयर इज नो केस ऑफ ग्रॉस नेग्लिजेंस। अदर क्वेश्चन फॉर द पीपल इज, नॉर्मली ऐसा देखा गया है कि ये चेक नहीं करते हैं चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स वेदर कारो इज एप्लीकेबल फॉर द करंट ईयर और नॉट। लास्ट ईयर कारो का रिपोर्ट आया, उसी को कंट्रोल सी कंट्रोल भी किया, डेटा चेंज किया, और जो वाउचिंग वेरिफिकेशन करना था वाउचिंग वेरिफिकेशन किया, कारो रिपोर्ट इज रेडी। क्वेश्चन arises, if in the current year कारो was not applicable but in the previous year कारो was applicable, तो पिछले साल कारो एप्लीकेबल था, करंट ईयर में कारो एप्लीकेबल नहीं था, लेकिन बावजूद इसके आपने कारो का रिपोर्ट इशू कर दिया, then what will be the consequence on the auditors? So if कारो was not applicable but कारो report was issued, then what will happen? Can we say कि अगर कारो का रिपोर्ट इशू कर दिया तो इसमें गलत क्या है? कुछ हमने एक्स्ट्रा ही बताया है ना, हम ट्रांसपेरेंट है ना। Will it survive? Answer is no. It is an act of gross negligence. The auditor can be penalized by ROC. I correctly remember the words of the president when this piece started. I think Girish Bhai was saying कि नफरा नोटिस आ रहे हैं, ROC नोटिस आ रहे हैं. This is a case where penalty can be levied under section number 450 of Companies Act, read with section 143(11) of the Companies Act. 143(11) deals with CARO. तो एक तो ये हो जाएगा penalty case under Companies Act. Number second, it can be a case of gross negligence also by virtue of clause number 7, part 1, second schedule of the Chartered Accountants Act. तो I would suggest all the listeners कि आप जब कारो का रिपोर्ट इस साल इशू करें, ऑल्दो इसके ऊपर एक न्यूमेरिकल है जो मैं डे 4 पर आपसे डिस्कस करूंगा, बट यस फॉर द टाइम बिंग इस साल जब आप कारो का रिपोर्ट इशू करेंगे तो ये देख लेंगे कारो आपके क्लाइंट पर एप्लीकेबल है कि नहीं है। अगर कारो एप्लीकेबल नहीं है और आप कारो इशू कर देते हैं, इट्स अ काइंड ऑफ नेग्लिजेंस एंड ऑफेंस आल्सो, एंड वी नीड टू बी केयरफुल अबाउट दिस काइंड ऑफ एप्लीकेबिलिटी एरिया। मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली जब हम बात करते हैं इन सब चीजों की, लेट मी आस्क यू वन क्वेश्चन व्हिच इन फैक्ट आई शुड हैड आस्क्ड इन द बिगिनिंग इटसेल्फ। हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू आर अवेयर as to what accounting standards are applicable to your client or not? कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं है कि अपने क्लाइंट के ऊपर सभी के सभी एस लगा देते हैं। आर यू अवेयर व्हाट आर द एग्जेम्पशंस ऑन एप्लीकेबिलिटी ऑफ अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स? क्या आपको पता है कि आपके क्लाइंट के पास एएस से क्या क्या एग्जेम्पशंस अवेलेबल हैं? नॉर्मली हमें केवल एक एग्जेम्पशन पता होता है, हमें केवल एक एग्जेम्पशन पता है कि अगर कंपनी स्मॉल कंपनी है तो उस पर कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट एप्लीकेबल नहीं होता। Other than this, are you aware of what other exemptions are available? So we need to comply with Companies Accounting Standard Rules 2021. In Companies Accounting Standard Rules 2021, whenever time permits you, please go through. Several exemptions are available to small and medium-sized companies. For example, cash flow statement is not required. Diluted earning per share need not be disclosed. Opening balance, additions, repayments equal to closing balance in respect of provisions need not be disclosed. Impairment testing can be carried out in a different manner and so on. So whatever exemptions are available, please do check from Companies Accounting Standard Rules 2021. So there are many such things to go. If I conclude my speech for today's program, my conclusion and the humble opinion will be, whatever report you are going to prepare, please don't copy paste. अल्टीमेटली क्या देखा गया है कि लोग बड़ी कंपनीज का ऑडिट रिपोर्ट डाउनलोड करते हैं और अपने क्लाइंट के लिए उस ऑडिट रिपोर्ट को अमेंड करके रिपोर्ट बना देते हैं। दिस इज अ रॉन्ग प्रैक्टिस। इन वन ऑफ द जजमेंट इन रिसेंट पास्ट एक ऑडिट रिपोर्ट ऐसे कॉपी पेस्ट हुआ, लेकिन जो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट कॉपी पेस्ट हुआ वो जिस बड़ी कंपनी का था उस पर इंड एस एप्लीकेबल था, लेकिन क्लाइंट पर तो एएस एप्लीकेबल था। तो हुआ क्या, अल्टीमेटली जो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट बना वो बन गया एज पर इंड एस, जो कि बनना चाहिए था एएस, एंड इट इज अ काइंड ऑफ ग्रॉस नेग्लिजेंस। There is a question by Sirish ji. If CFS means cash flow statement, I believe. If CFS is not applicable and given, then also it is negligence. Sirish ji, ऐसा नहीं है। क्या जब हम बोलते हैं ना exemption, इसका मतलब क्या होता है कि इट इज अ चॉइस ऑफ योर्स वेदर और नॉट टू गिव कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट। तो अगर आपने कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट दे दिया तो देयर इज नो नेग्लिजेंस, बिकॉज इट इज रॉन्ग स्टेटमेंट टू से, इट इज रॉन्ग स्टेटमेंट टू से दैट कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल। रादर वी शुड स्टेट दैट इट इज द चॉइस ऑफ द कंपनी टू प्रिपेयर एंड प्रेजेंट कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट और नॉट। तो चॉइस होने का मतलब क्या हो गया कि कोई क्वेश्चन ही नहीं है ना नेग्लिजेंस का। लास्ट क्वेश्चन बिफोर आई कंक्लूड, very soon you will be involved in tax audits. Question arises whether the auditing standards which we discussed today about audit report, whether these standards are applicable, whether these standards are applicable even for tax audits or not. जब आप टैक्स ऑडिट रिपोर्ट बनाते हैं नॉर्मली फॉर्म 3CB जाएगा या फॉर्म 3CA जाएगा along with the फॉर्म 3CD। तो क्या ये वाले ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स टैक्स ऑडिट रिपोर्ट के टाइम पर भी अप्लाई करने हैं? आंसर इज अ बिग यस। ये वाले ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स आपको टैक्स ऑडिट रिपोर्ट बनाते वक्त भी अप्लाई करने होंगे। एंड इन माय एक्सपीरियंस व्हाट आई फाउंड, most of the people are not complying with the auditing standards when they report under 44AB of Income Tax Act. And this is, I got one statement from Chandramohan ji, yes, if not audited under other act. Yes, Chandramohan sir, you are right. But the thing is, how many of us are complying with the standards? ये कहना कि standards are applicable is one thing, but comply करना in real world is another thing. For example, in tax audit reports, I have never found, in my experience, I have never found emphasis of matter paragraph in Form 3CB. And this is a kind of situation which we need to understand. अगर मैं छोटा सा example लूं, let us take an example and then we'll close. Let us assume you are the auditor. I mean, you are the tax auditor. You are the tax auditor of a partnership firm. समझिएगा ध्यान से, एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा हूं मैं आपसे। आप एक पार्टनरशिप फर्म के टैक्स ऑडिटर हैं। पार्टनरशिप फर्म ने अपने प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट पर जो डेप्रिसिएशन प्रोवाइड किया है, वो डेप्रिसिएशन एज पर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट सेक्शन नंबर 32 प्रोवाइड किया। जबकि जो अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स है वो कहते हैं दैट डेप्रिसिएशन शुड बी प्रोवाइडेड एज पर यूजफुल लाइफ्स। नाउ व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, बीइंग अ टैक्स ऑडिटर, you observed that in the books of accounts of partnership firm, the depreciation is provided in accordance with section 32 of Income Tax Act, whereas the depreciation should had been provided as per accounting standard number 10 on the basis of useful life. अभी एज अ टैक्स ऑडिटर क्या करेंगे आप? क्या आप ऑडिट रिपोर्ट क्वालिफाई करेंगे या नहीं करेंगे? Answer is yes. Audit report needs to be qualified. And you know the problem here is, when you will qualify the report, the standard says you have to quantify the impact of misstatement. क्वांटिफिकेशन कैसे निकालेंगे? ये क्वांटिफिकेशन अगर निकल सकता होता तो शायद हम बुक्स के अंदर भी उसको यूजफुल लाइफ पर लेकर चले जाते, बिकॉज इट इज अ लॉन्ग ड्रॉन प्रैक्टिस। कितने वर्षों से ऐसा होता आ रहा है कि डेप्रिसिएशन पार्टनरशिप फर्म में या प्रोप्राइटरशिप फर्म के अंदर एज पर इनकम टैक्स जाता है। So because of lack of evidence, you are not able to quantify. Now, what does SA 705 says? If you are not able to quantify, then simply state the fact that the impact is not quantifiable. But अगर आप impact quantify नहीं कर सकते हैं तो ये अपने आप में excuse नहीं हो सकता that you will not qualify. So in this current year, when you will start the tax audit, please be careful. अगर ऐसा कोई mismatch है कि आपके क्लाइंट ने AS comply नहीं किए हैं, तो उस केस के अंदर you have to qualify the same, and that is what the requirement of SA 705 is. तो विजय जी, मेरी तरफ से तो यही है। कुछ और क्वेरीज अगर आपके मन में हो या ऑडियंस ने आपको अगर कुछ मैसेज किया हो तो आप पूछ सकते हैं।
मेरे को कोई मैसेज आया नहीं है। If anybody has any query, you can please ask. YouTube पे भी मेरे को कोई मैसेज दिख नहीं रहा है क्वेरी वाला।
ओके,
5-7 जन YouTube में भी है, कोई मैसेज दिख नहीं रहा है। तो ठीक है सर, टुडे विल एंड टुमारो सेम टाइम।
जी सर।
चंद्रमोहन जी बोल रहे हैं आप टैक्स ऑडिट का पॉइंट रिपीट करिए।
सर, टैक्स ऑडिट का पॉइंट ये है कि एक पार्टनरशिप फर्म है, पार्टनरशिप के प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट है, मान लीजिए फर्नीचर है। अभी क्या हुआ, जो पार्टनरशिप फर्म है उसके पास बैलेंस शीट में फर्नीचर है। आपने जब बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट चेक किया तो पता चला कि फर्नीचर पर जो डेप्रिसिएशन है वो एज पर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट प्रोवाइड किया गया है। जबकि इन द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स डेप्रिसिएशन जो है एज पर अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स आना चाहिए. अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स आर सेइंग दैट फिक्स्ड असेट शैल बी डेप्रिशिएटेड एज पर यूजफुल लाइफ. तो अभी क्या हुआ कि क्लाइंट ने एएस फॉलो नहीं किया एंड क्लाइंट इज अ नॉन कॉर्पोरेट एंटिटी. तो अगर क्लाइंट नॉन कॉर्पोरेट एंटिटी है, उस पर टैक्स ऑडिट एप्लीकेबल है और उसने अगर एएस फॉलो नहीं किया है, तो आपको फॉर्म 3CB के अंदर क्वालिफिकेशन डालना पड़ेगा. दैट इज व्हाट द पॉइंट आई वाज टेलिंग फॉर टैक्स ऑडिट. एम आई क्लियर चंद्र मोहन जी? Okay.
Sir, but in tax audit report in 3CD, 3CB, very limited space is provided to give our
तो सर,
observation.
जो रिपोर्ट
तो-
प्रिंट आउट निकाल कर अपने फाइल में रखोगे उसमें तो कम से कम डाल ही देना.
Okay, but it doesn't go because it is then how it will get uploaded अगर पूरा नहीं देंगे.
उसमें एक तरीका है ना सर, जो लिमिटेड स्पेस होता है ना उसके अंदर आप पूरा पैराग्राफ मत डालिए. प्रिंट आउट में तो पूरा
अच्छा.
पैराग्राफ आ जाएगा. जो अपलोड करने वक्त होगा उसमें एक रेफरेंस डाल दीजिए, डेप्रिसिएशन नोट एज
Okay.
पर अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड. कम से कम कुछ रेफरेंस पॉइंट तो जा रहा है वहां पर.
Okay, okay, ठीक है. क्वांटिफाई नहीं हो जाएगा उसमें, मतलब उतनी
हाँ,
जगह
तो अभी कल को क्या होगा ना, कल को मान लीजिए कोई क्वेरी आता है तो ऑलवेज आई कैन से दैट वहां पर तो टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम है, स्पेस कम है, बट अगर आप रियल रिपोर्ट देखोगे तो हम उनको प्रोवाइड कर देंगे बाद में.
ओके. बिकॉज आई डोंट थिंक एवरीबॉडी इज फॉलोइंग सेम प्रोसीजर कि वो डेप्रिसिएशन इनकम टैक्स एक्ट से करता है.
हाँ, लास्ट टाइम जब भी मैं थाने आया था ना तो विजय से मुलाकात
हाँ.
हुई थी, तो वहां पर जो ऑडियंस थी वहां पर ही मैंने क्वेश्चन पूछा था.
हाँ.
ओनली थिंग इज क्या होता है ना गिरीश जी,
हाँ.
सुरेंद्र, गिरीश जी, होता क्या है कि कुछ ऐसी प्रैक्टिसेस जो लंबे समय से होती आ रही हो लेकिन गलत हो,
हाँ,
उसको ठीक मान
बराबर.
बैठते हैं.
नहीं, बट क्या होता है, मतलब जो फॉर्म पुरानी है उनके पहले ऑडिटर कोई और थे, अभी अपने पास आ रहा है, जब से ओरिजिनल वही आ रहा है.
हाँ
ऑल्सो वी आर मेकिंग सेम चेंज, नए केस में भी वही
हाँ,
होता है.
वो ब्रॉड फॉरवर्ड होता
वो,
चला जाता है ना उसके बाद.
हाँ, तो अपने पास क्वांटिफिकेशन भी नहीं है और इवन ग्रॉस ये वैल्यू भी नहीं है जो डब्ल्यूडीबी से ही आ रही है बुक में.
वही वही चीज मैं कह रहा हूँ ना, अभी क्या है कि
हाँ.
हमारे पास सफिशिएंट डेटा नहीं है तो क्वांटिफाई कर नहीं सकते. बट
हाँ.
एज ऑडिटर मुझे अपनी स्किन भी सेव करनी है, तो मैं क्या करूंगा, मैं लिखूंगा
ओके.
depreciation is not as per AS10, the financial impact of which is not quantifiable because of lack of data.
ओके. ओके.
At least auditor is skin safe.
ओके. आईसीडीएस में कुछ नहीं जाएगा, आईसीडीएस में भी लिखना पड़ेगा ना.
ICDS के अंदर तो प्रॉब्लम है ही ना, बिकॉज
हाँ.
ICDS तो चलेगा एज पर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट,
हाँ.
और बुक कीपिंग के अंदर जो अकाउंटेंसी है वो चलना है. अब यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है कि जैसे ही हम लिखते हैं ना फॉर्म 3CD के क्लोज नंबर 30 में लिखते हैं कि नो
हाँ.
डिफरेंस इज देयर बिटवीन ICDS एंड
बराबर
AS,
है.
तो हम कहीं ना कहीं सरकार को बता रहे हैं कि हमने ऑडिट ठीक से नहीं किया.
हाँ, बराबर है.
अब
ओके.
वो बात अलग है, जैसे आपने शुरुआत की ना, आपने पहले ही कहा कि नोटिस आ रहे हैं. गॉड नोस कब
हाँ.
नोटिस आ जाए इस चीज के लिए.
हाँ.
अभी तो इंस्टीट्यूट में अपने पास वो है ना, टैक्स ऑडिट रिपोर्ट क्वालिटी रिव्यू बोर्ड,
हाँ.
तो वही कोई नोटिस भेज दे तो क्या करेंगे उस वक्त पर.
हाँ, उसके भी आई है नोटिस सर, मेरे केस में, मतलब नॉट इन माय केस, मेरे एक फ्रेंड के केस में आई हुई है, क्वालिटी रिपोर्ट वाले भी आ रहे हैं.
हाँ, तो वो
ठीक
सब
है.
चीजें हैं ना सर, वी कैन नॉट टेक द
हाँ.
थिंग्स लाइटली नाउ. मतलब इट इज नाउ आई थिंक 23 इयर्स ऑफ माय प्रैक्टिस. 23-24 सालों में ना सर एक चीज नहीं बदली अभी भी, एंड दैट
हाँ.
इज चलता है एटीट्यूड.
हाँ, आगे से चली आ रही है.
चली आ रही है. अभी क्या होता है ना, हमारे 4-5 दोस्त होंगे, मैंने विजय जी को फोन किया, विजय जी आप कैसे कर रहे हैं. विजय जी ने कहा कि मैं तो यार बुक्स में भी सेक्शन 32 का डेप्रिसिएशन डालता हूँ. फिर मैंने
हम्म.
आपको भी यही जवाब दिया, आई एम फॉलोइंग इनकम टैक्स. मैंने अपने 4-5 मित्रों को फोन किया, सभी मित्र कहते हैं कि बुक्स में वी आर प्रोवाइडिंग डेप्रिसिएशन एज पर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट. तो मन क्या कहेगा सर मेरा, जब सभी लोग ऐसा कर रहे हैं तो मैं कैसे ही करता हूँ.
बराबर है, एवरीबॉडी इज फॉलोइंग द सेम.
लेकिन सर क्या होता है, नोटिस जब आता है ना सभी का एक साथ नहीं आता, वो
एक को
एक
अपने को
जैसा
याद
आता है.
है. बराबर, बराबर. नहीं, दैट इज देयर. बट उसका कोई अभी जो नया एसेट लेगा एटलीस्ट वहां से तो स्टार्ट करे, तो
वहां से
वन डे
शुरू
यू
कर
विल
सर,
बी,
वहां
हाँ,
से
वन
शुरू
डे
कर.
यू विल बी एट द पार, मतलब भाई
यस.
बुक्स में अकाउंट ये है और उसमें कुछ एक्सरसाइज करके रखे कि एज पर अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड दिस विल बी द डेप्रिसिएशन, एज पर बुक्स दिस इज डेप्रिसिएशन.
एटलीस्ट कहीं से शुरुआत तो करनी पड़ेगी ना सर.
हाँ. हाँ, दैट इज गुड. सो आई एम सेटिस्फाइड विथ योर आंसर सर, नाउ कंटिन्यू.
बस सर, अभी मुझे इजाजत दीजिए. जो भी चीजें हैं डाउट वाली पूछ लीजिए, अदरवाइज आज की स्पीच तो मेरी कंप्लीट हो चुकी है. कल वी विल डिस्कस अबाउट ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स.
सर, तो आपका प्रेजेंटेशन बढ़िया था. इट वाज एक्चुअली अ लर्निंग सेशन फॉर अस. वी आर नॉट, कोई इसमें ग्रेट ऑडिटर है ही नहीं, तो आपने जो बताया इट वाज न्यू फॉर मेनी पीपल हियर. ऐसे ऐसा
आप
करना
बताओ,
चाहिए।
विजय जी ने ना जिस दिन ये टाइम लिया था, आई वॉज इन फ्लाइट, और विजय जी ने बड़ा स्मार्ट तरीके से टॉपिक्स को डिजाइन किया है।
हाँ
जो
ना।
डराने वाला टॉपिक है ना, वो डे 4 पे रखा है।
हाँ हाँ
जो डे 4 का टॉपिक है, कंसिडरेशंस फॉर स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट ईयर 23-24,
हाँ।
आप देखना उस दिन वो सारे टॉपिक ना डराने वाले हैं, और विजय जी ने ये टॉपिक सबसे आखिरी में रखा है। तीन
दैट
दिन
इज ऑन 4th।
कंफर्टेबल। हाँ, डे 4 जब भी होगा कि भाई 3 दिन तो कंफर्टेबली निकाल लो, डे 4 को आपको डराएंगे।
डराएंगे। अरे बाप रे, तो अभी
तो विजय
सब
भाई
भाई
ठीक
लोग,
है।
नहीं नहीं, पीपल विल बी एट गेट ग्रेट इज इफ यू आर देयर विथ अस।
सबको बेस तो समझ में आना चाहिए ना, पहला बेस ही नहीं समझेगा।
हाँ, एबीसीडी
हाँ
आना जरूरी है।
हाँ,
हाँ, डायरेक्ट जेड पे तो जा नहीं सकते।
हाँ जी, जैसे अभी डे 4 पे जो डिस्कशन होगा वो ये होगा, ऑडिट ट्रेल के बारे में खास तौर पर। वही
हाँ
व्हेन वी डिस्कस ऑडिट ट्रेल, तो आपके पास भी कुछ क्लाइंट्स होंगे जो एमएस एक्सेल के ऊपर अपना बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट रखते हैं। तो
हाँ।
अब सवाल ये उठता है कि क्या एमएस एक्सेल जो है वो अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर है, और अगर वो अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर है तो ऑडिट ट्रेल आएगा? आंसर तो यस है सर। तो वो कैसे होगा वो हम डिस्कस कर लेंगे।
वो
तो मान लीजिए कोई क्लाइंट आपका है, उसका जो पेरोल अकाउंटिंग है वो एक्सेल पर हो रहा है, या जो आपका एफएआर है, फिक्स
हम्म,
एसेट रजिस्टर, वो एक्सेल पे है, तो सर वहां पर भी ऑडिट ट्रेल चाहिए।
चाहिए ना, फिर वो तो पूरे इसके लिए ही चाहिए, अकाउंट्स के लिए,
अब
एनी
मान
पार्ट ऑफ द
लीजिए,
अकाउंट।
यस, आपके पास कोई क्लाइंट है और उस क्लाइंट का मान लीजिए उसके ऊपर कॉस्ट अकाउंटिंग एप्लीकेबल है। तो अगर
हम्म।
क्लाइंट के ऊपर कॉस्ट अकाउंटिंग एप्लीकेबल है, तो क्वेश्चन उठता है कि क्या कॉस्ट अकाउंटिंग रिकॉर्ड्स के लिए ऑडिट ट्रेल चाहिए? आंसर इज यस। अभी क्या हो रहा है, हम चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स लोग या कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट लोग जो हैं, वो केवल सोच रहे हैं कि बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स के ऊपर ही ऑडिट ट्रेल लगता है, कॉस्ट रिकॉर्ड्स के लिए भी ऑडिट ट्रेल लगता है, कैसे, वी विल डिस्कस। तो ये कमर्शियल ब्रेक के बाद बताऊंगा आपको डे 4 पे।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू, थैंक यू। ना विजय, हेलो विजय।
सर इजाजत है, एम आई परमिटेड नाउ?
कमल जी आप
नहीं
ये
नहीं,
प्रेजेंटेशन शेयर करेंगे ना बार?
हाँ, मैं अभी भेज दूंगा आपको क्लोज करने के बाद।
ठीक ठीक है, ठीक है। थैंक यू वेरी मच कि आपने हमारी रिक्वेस्ट पे टाइम निकाला, और
ऑल माय प्लेजर सर, ऑल माय प्लेजर।
हम लोग का ज्ञान बढ़ाया काफ़ी काफ़ी हद तक। जो
थैंक यू
छोटी
सर।
मोटी गलतियाँ होती
नहीं, ये
हैं,
जो छोटी मोटी और स्मॉल स्मॉल थिंग्स वी डोंट, क्या बोलते हैं, उधर टाइम पे याद नहीं आती जब रिपोर्ट बनाते, बट
that was the
ये
only
कॉपी पेस्ट।
reason that was the only
हाँ
reason that we designed this, कि ये छोटी छोटी गलतियां होती है, लोगों का ध्यान नहीं जाता है, तो हम सबको गाइड करें जितना हो हमारी तरफ से। एज अ प्रोफेशनल बॉडी इट इज़ आवर ड्यूटी टू गाइड देम। आगे देखें जो होता है। चलिए सर, फिर कल मिलते हैं 7 बजे, वही
यस
पौने
सर,
7 बजे
श्योर
लॉग इन
श्योर।
करेंगे सब लोग।
जी सर, जी सर।
थैंक
तो थैंक
यू
यू
सर।
ऑडियंस।